The party was planning to reveal doctored photos which would portray his daughter as a lesbian. Perot says that was the reason he dropped out of the race in July.
A couple of weeks later, I got this report from a fellow in Arizona through an intermediary saying that he had seen a doctored photograph that they were going to give the tabloids to smear my daughter before her wedding, and that they were going to disrupt the wedding in the church.
Well, Bill Clinton had little to say about Perot's dirty trick charge against the Bush campaign, except to say the situation is strange. Clinton and Al Gore on the road again. The candidates are riding a bus through North Carolina, the same state where President Bush took a train tour a few days ago.
Out of the political arena now, in Council Bluffs, a highly publicized case is set to begin. Jury selection begins today for the Joanne Taggart in her trial. You'll recall Taggart is charged with child endangerment. She is accused of standing by while her boyfriend inflicted a near-fatal beating on her 4-year-old son, Jonathan. Now, the trial was moved to Council Bluffs because of pretrial publicity. And Edward Diasis, convicted of decapitating an Ames woman, faces the jury again. The trial of Diasis is underway. Jury selection began yesterday in Lee County and will continue today. Diasis is charged with stabbing a fellow inmate while serving a life sentence for murdering Jennifer Gardner. Now, if convicted again, Edward Diasis could be sentenced to a second term of life without parole. Moving on to better news here. Our forecast.
And it is good. We're going to see lots of sunshine. The fog should be out of here in the next couple of hours, and temperature's warming up nicely. Let's go over to the board and show you what it's like out there right now. Beautiful sunrise. Look at that. Wow, spectacular. See a little fog rolling through the rolling hills of Iowa and along the river down here, almost making its way to that bridge there on the Des Moines River. But a nice morning on hand. Cool, though. 32 degrees, clear skies, calm winds. Everything you need to form a little frost on your automobile out there, so you might need that scraper out there. Dew point down at 27, relative humidity at 82%, a rising barometer 30.02 or 03 inches of mercury on the rise. And rising, that's what the temperatures are going to do. Look at the temperatures statewide. A little cool up to the north. Mason City at 25, Spencer and Waterloo at 27 degrees, Ottumwa at 34, Lamoni warm 36, and Council Bluffs, if you want to consider 36 a warm temperature, then let it be warm. But it's definitely going to warm up here into the 60s today. We should have a nice forecast for you. Most of the rain remaining to the south parts of Louisiana, East Texas, and also Mississippi with some thunderstorms down there. Also some rain showers back here in the Rockies, but we're not picking that up because of the mountains out there. As a matter of fact, places on I-70 just west of Denver around the Eisenhower Tunnel picked up 5 inches of snow yesterday. The warm spot in the nation, Waco, Texas, had 92 degrees. Most of the activity down here to the south parts of Arkansas, seeing some thunderstorms and thunder showers right now as we speak, and they're all moving off to the east. It's going to be a fairly wet day for the southeastern part of the country, but for us, high pressure is still giving us clear skies. Should be a fairly nice afternoon with just some high clouds, and that's really about it. Show the maps in motion. High pressure scooting off to the east. The cold front drops on through. It'll pass on through this evening and tonight and give us a wind shift and cooler temperatures. This afternoon, expecting temperatures in the 60s here. The 50s stacking up across Wisconsin and most of Minnesota. The 40s well up into Canada. The 70s down to our south. You're going to have to travel a long way to find those temperatures. Forecast for today, mostly sunny skies, 64 degrees. It's going to feel just like yesterday, kind of a broken record forecast, but by tonight we drop down to 36 degrees again with mostly clear skies. And on your Wednesday, partly cloudy skies and 56 as we get a little cooler here. On Friday, 52 and sunny skies, and Saturday, 58 degrees, partly cloudy. Forecast looks great. Bob and Stacia.
Well, Scott, we could certainly use more of that. At least Iowa's farmers could. Here's the latest crop report showing harvest or lack of harvest. Actually, the corn crop well behind normal when it comes to putting it in the bin. Only 24% of the corn crop is now out of the bin. Here's the market board from yesterday. November beans down 2.5, 541 3/4. December corn down 1 1/4, 205 1/2. Interior hogs steady to 50 lower. Country trade top 43 cents. Plants top at 44. The cash grain market, both corn and beans, 1 to 4 cents lower.
Another check on business news for this Tuesday morning. Checking out Wall Street. New York Stock Exchange closing up 36.45 at 3244.09. Volume on the big board, over 187 million shares traded. Price of gold opens in London this morning at $338.50 an ounce. That's down $2.75 from Monday's close. Prices on the Tokyo Stock Exchange closed higher Tuesday. The Nikkei was up 173.93 points from the previous session, closing at 17,000, and the U.S. dollar was up against the Japanese yen, closing at 122.28 yen. That is up 0.66 yen from yesterday's close.
Turning to some health news now, job stress. It's one of the major factors of workers' compensation claims now. Now, new research suggests an inexpensive alternative to costly doctor visits. Dr. Dina Dell explains this morning.
Imagine the music is raining down upon you. Like a gentle shower of light flowing down.
Psychophysiologist Dr. Emmett Miller is leading a client into a deep state of relaxation.
Picture yourself looking and feeling really healthy, really well.
This guided journey is one of several tools used in the practice of stress management these days. An integral part of most relaxation exercises is music.
Music directly affects our state of consciousness. We know that this is true, number one. Number two, we know that our state of consciousness has a direct effect upon our physical health.
You know, he's right. The levels and kinds of stresses in our lives have been linked to major health problems like heart disease. Research has shown that music can produce positive physiological changes that help combat the effects of stress, like the release of those good old mood-elevating endorphins. But now researchers have discovered that the kind of music you listen to may make a difference. In a study at the University of Louisville's nursing school, subjects who were played Baroque classical music and New Age music had lower levels of stress and lowered heart rates after listening for 20 minutes. However, when they listened to popular music, which most preferred, they reported no change in the level of stress, and their heart rates went up slightly. So when it comes to weapons for battling stress, top 40 hits may not be the way to go, at least when it comes to relaxing.
This is science, a new field, even though it's not new for humanity. And I think we're going to find out much more. That's not just Baroque or New Age, but there are deeper qualities in the music.
I'm Dr. Dina Dell.
We're coming right back. Hope you'll stick around.
It's right outside right now. Here's what you'll be seeing. 32 degrees. It's 6:50, 10 before 7. This is Today in Iowa.
Locked into a health plan that forces you to do the paperwork, a plan that restricts emergency care when traveling, or where you never know how much you're going to pay to visit the doctor. The grass may indeed be greener on the other side of the fence. Come over to HMO Iowa. It's health care you can feel good about. Member the Principal Financial Group.
Shivering, cold, rescue me. My furnace is too old. Can't you see that I'm freezing?
Now get rebates of up to $550 on a qualifying Bryant natural gas system. For details, call Citywide Heating and Air Conditioning. Call Citywide today.
Come on, Bryant, and rescue me. Rescue me.
Beat the what?
Now that's with Jim Zabel, and it's about...
That's on Sundays at...
I love it, I love it, I love it. I'm Jim Zabel.
And I'm Pat Parrish. Join us for another great season of college football on Beat the Bear.
Watch Sundays after Newscenter 13 at 10 and send in your picks to Beat the Bear.
Weekly winners will take home jackets, hats, and cases of oil from Valvoline and a tailgate party for 20 from Farmland Foods.
So tune in Sunday nights at 10:30 for your chance to beat the bear, the Crazy Bear.
We have to talk. I've been, dating another man. It's your brother.
Better make it Malox, because Malox Plus tablets relieve indigestion, heartburn, and gas. Tums can't do all that. And with 3 great new flavors, why take anything else?
Oh, here. You'll need these. I know my brother better than you.
Nobody knows your stomach better, so you better make it Malox.
Bet you recognize him if you watch the Today Show every morning. Bryant Gumbel. We pull away photographer Brian Reinke showing us a live picture this Tuesday morning of the State House. And actually, I believe President Bush is expected to walk through the doors any moment now and greet Bryant for an interview that they will be doing. President Bush probably running a little late. There, wait a minute. Can you see, Bob? Oh, no, that's just some people mulling around. Brian zooming in. Is that no?
No, that's not him.
False alarm, false alarm. That is not him. He is expected to come through any moment. And,
That's right.
So exciting. That
They're
would
going to
have
tape that in about 6 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll be able to watch it 8 o'clock in its entirety, our time, because of what's going on. But anyway, we have a moment, quick check to say hello with Van and Connie.
Yeah, I think President Bush is running late because he was upstairs with you guys, wasn't he?
You know, you guys, you may want to provide coverage when we broadcast our morning show from the Oval Office, because that's
very good.
That's coming up soon.
I'll tell you what, when you guys do that, we will provide coverage.
All right. I think we just underwhelmed Stacia.
Well, you know,
now, you're not talking about the Oval Office we have here in this building.
No, in the White House. You folks that see the president today in your conversations might just drop that in. You know, Van and Connie like to broadcast the morning program from the Oval Office sometime.
Well, we haven't heard, yeah, okay, I know this is, what am I missing here? Hopefully I'll be covering it.
Yeah, you bet.
We'll send her out with you guys, okay?
That'd be good.
I'll go with. You know, you two, we have to actually leave you because...
I know, you're excited for the president. Go for it, Stacia, go for it.
No, my producer is saying, say goodbye to them, say goodbye to them.
All right.
So long.
Because I think we're going to talk to Jim Strickland live, not because we wanted to rush off with them. But anyway, we have some sports first of all.
Yeah, let's find out what happened in the football game last night.
Good morning, everyone. The Blue Jays paraded through downtown Toronto yesterday, and it ended at Sky Dome. Over 50,000 fans jammed their way inside. They honored the team following the dramatic victory in Game 6 last Saturday. The Blue Jays beat the Braves to capture the World Series title. The players gave all the credit to the Canadian fans.
And I want to thank you fans. You're the best fans in the world. And I don't care about the 1 or 2 that boo me. You're the best.
And I'm so proud of you guys. I swear, be proud of yourself because you're great. And thanks for everything. I really mean that. I really do.
They asked me to come up last because, of course, I'm the oldest guy on the team. But as you can see, age doesn't mean a damn thing.
Also in baseball Monday, 26 players, including Greg Maddux, have filed for free agency. The Cubs pitcher declared his free agency on the first day. Besides Maddux, such big names as Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, and Wade Boggs have become free agents. Northern Iowa remains #1 in the latest Division I AA college football poll. The Panthers again received all 4 first-place votes thanks to this thrilling win over Idaho last Saturday night. UNI held off second-ranked Idaho 27-26. That Jay Johnson 84-yard bomb to Kenny Shedd was the difference. Now here are all the scores from Monday.
As a congressman, Jim Ross Lightfoot has dropped 1.4 million pieces of junk mail on Iowa. We need Elaine Baxter, a new leader in Congress, on our side.
Who offers personal, professional health care for everything from colds and flu to heart disease and cancer?
The physicians at the Tower Medical Clinic. That's who.
What is the advantage of having a nationally respected medical university in Des Moines?
Receiving medical care from professors who teach tomorrow's physicians. That's what.
How can I get family health care and specialty care under the same roof?
By calling the Tower Medical Clinic at 279-WELL. That's how.
AE chocolate milk and grandma's cookies. Made for each other.
Night Eyes 92 is just around the corner. Be a part of a Halloween tradition at Blank Park Zoo, October 23rd through the 31st. This second annual celebration is a fun-filled trick-or-treat adventure for the entire family. Don't miss this exciting event for children of all ages, October 23rd through the 31st at Blank Park Zoo.
It's every parent's worst nightmare.
You guys like puppies?
Would your child talk to a stranger?
Can we go get some in my car?
Sure.
You guys want to walk him?
Sure.
Would your child leave with a stranger?
My car, it's right over here. The blue one.
I'm Kim Kerrigan. If you think your children are safe from strangers, a Newscenter 13 special investigation may just shock you.
Well, he's a nice stranger, I guess.
Watch Strangers Among Us, a Newscenter 13 special report, Thursday at 10.
You are looking Looking at a live picture set up inside the State House, President Bush has made his entrance. He is getting some makeup put on right now. You can take a look. This is what's happening right now. If you're waking up, we have the President in our own State House. There's a close-up from photographer Brian Ranke as the President gets his makeup set for his interview with Bryant Gumbel, which is going to take place in just a few moments. We want to take a final look at what President Bush will be up to this morning.
That's right. For that, we check in once again with Newscenter 13's Jim Strickland, who's standing by live at the Convention Center. Jim?
Well, Bob, the Dowling High School Band has made its way into the hall, and they're getting all set up. They will be playing a few patriotic tunes during the reception today. As for the President's itinerary, as you mentioned, he is now at the State Capitol. He will be doing an interview on the Today Show with Bryant Gumbel. You can stay tuned here to TV 13 to see that, and then at 9 o'clock, that's when this reception, a question and answer session with the President, is expected to get underway here at the Convention Center. The doors to this place opening in just a few moments at 7 o'clock. There is already quite a group outside the metal detectors waiting to get in. About 3,000 people will be here to greet the Chief Executive.
Jim Strickland reporting live at the Convention Center for us this morning. Thanks. He'll be hanging out there. We'll have live coverage of the President's rally coming up.
Yeah, good weather today. About 60 degrees, and we're going to look at a dry forecast for the next couple days. Actually, 64 expected for a high temperature today.
Okay, we're going to leave you with a live shot looking at the State House. President Bush getting his makeup set. We'll be back with local updates and live coverage throughout the morning. Stay with us.
Baby was up all night. Now you gotta make the morning right. Folgers always comes through. It's decaffeinated too.
Mountain-grown Folgers decaffeinated. It gives you something the other leading brand doesn't. Richer aroma to wake you up.
Now you're off to a great start, 'cause Folgers warmed your heart. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
He was smart, he was fast, and he knew what to aim for. At high noon, he made his move. He went to Best Buy to round up 0% financing for 1 year on home and car stereos, TVs, VCRs, and camcorders. With 0% for 1 year at Best Buy this week, you just can't miss.
Coming up on the next Van and Connie show, we're going to talk about vegetables.
Also, the world champions of video games. Is this that little Mario guy that hops around?
Something like that.
20 days until election night.
Good morning. President Bush, trailing in the polls and hoping to close ground, is turning to the national media for a series of last-minute interviews. With the election now just 1 week away, we'll talk with the President live in Des Moines, Iowa today, Tuesday, October the 27th, 1992.
From NBC News, this is Today with Bryant Gumbel and Katherine Couric.
It's daybreak in the capital of the heartland. We're in Des Moines, Iowa, set for a split show on a Tuesday morning with a very special guest. And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Tuesday morning. Bryant Gumbel here in Des Moines. Katie Couric's back in Studio 3B in New York. Hey, Katie, how you doing?
Bryant, good morning. Where are you in Des Moines? You look like a classics professor in that very august setting.
It's a very presidential setting, isn't it? And appropriately enough, we're in the law library at the state capitol, up 3 floors in what is a marvelous building. We'll try to show it to you maybe as the morning goes along. The rotunda is just outside, where any moment we expect President Bush to be arriving, and we'll be talking with him live in our second hour about the polls that still show him trailing with the election just 1 week away, Katie.
We're looking forward to that conversation, Bryant. We should note that Governor Clinton will be with us tomorrow morning for 1 hour, and we'll be including viewer phone calls along with that conversation. Meanwhile, this morning, we'll be talking about Ross Perot and what his latest allegations of dirty tricks by the Republicans tell us about the Texas billionaire. Bryant?
Okay, Katie, we'll also be going out to L.A. to talk with Peter Uberoth about the Rebuild L.A. effort and why it seems to be stalled. But right now, let's start the morning at the news desk with Margaret Larson. Margaret, good morning.
Good morning, Brian. Thank you. Some of the wind seems to have gone out of Ross Perot's presidential sails with just a week to go until Election Day. After stirring up a storm with allegations of dirty tricks, Perot is trying to steer through the fog of unanswered questions. Jim Cummins is with us this morning from Dallas. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Margaret. Perot reportedly will spend more than $20 million this last week of the campaign on TV commercials and half-hour network programs to enhance his image. But he may have trouble overcoming what TV viewers have seen and heard the last 2 days.
An obviously frustrated, angry presidential candidate interrupts a routine press briefing by his campaign staff at headquarters in Dallas and says this.
I am sick and tired of you all questioning my integrity without a basis for it. I am sick and tired of you ignoring the people who can confirm the articles when you print or run your stories.
He was talking about two different stories. One, a report questioning an allegation that Perot made several years ago that a hit squad with rifles was chased off his estate by a guard dog. Perot said one man saw it, but he won't say who.
Because it's none of your business.
The other story is the one about the alleged smear campaign against one of Perot's daughters and allegations that the GOP wanted to wiretap his office. Perot passed the wiretap allegations on to Buck Revell, special agent in charge of the FBI office in Dallas. Back in June, Revell said he used to often get reports like that from Perot.
The fact that he gets involved in those kind of things is, simply a characteristic of the man.
There was no evidence of wiretaps. At the same news conference, Perot continued his attacks on Bill Clinton, saying the Democrat is moving towards socialism by wanting more government. Margaret?
Jim, thank you. Perot's recent surge in the polls did not help President Bush's re-election effort, and it appears Perot's new problems aren't helping either. Jim Miklaszewski joins us from Des Moines, Iowa, where the president is campaigning. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Margaret. You know, the last thing the Bush campaign wanted to do at this stage of the game is get involved in a spitting match with Ross Perot. But some Bush advisors say Perot's charges left them no choice. Bush aides took off the kid gloves and went after Ross Perot and his charges of White House dirty tricks. Spokesman Marlon Fitzwater called Perot a paranoid crazy man.
This man simply cannot see the truth.
President Bush wouldn't touch it personally, but signed on to the attack.
Marlon spoke with me.
Chief of Staff Jim Baker suggested Perot put up or shut up, show proof. And it was revealed that after the last debate, Barbara Bush told both Perot and his wife that the charges were just not true. Bush aides have been careful not to alienate Perot's supporters, but they felt they had to knock down hard Perot's latest charges. Bush also has to increase his positives. So in a Denver speech, he laid out what he'd do in a second Bush term. But by the time he made Albuquerque, he was back to what's worked best, the attack strategy against Bill Clinton and the media.
They beat up on Dan Quayle for going into the service, and they apologized for Clinton for staying out of the service. Come on, where's fair play out there?
With a week left before the election, a senior Bush aide said the strategy is set. Attack Clinton on trust and taxes and hope Ross Perot goes away. Some in the Bush campaign are upset with all this White House attention to Ross Perot. They feel that with only a week left before the election, every hour is precious, and that an entire day of campaigning was wasted. Margaret?
Jim, thank you. President Bush will be Bryant's guest a little bit later on today at 8 o'clock this morning. Bill Clinton continues to cruise along at the front of the presidential pack aboard a chartered bus. John Dancy reports that the status of frontrunner allows Clinton a few political luxuries.
While George Bush is still trying to lock up his basic support, Bill Clinton has time to devote to a state like North Carolina, which normally goes Republican in presidential elections. Bus tours like this have been a staple of the Clinton campaign this year, and the fact that he's taking another one in the last week of the campaign is a clear signal that Clinton is not changing strategy, despite Perot's rise in the polls.
Clinton is drawing good crowds, enthusiastic crowds, and some of his most enthusiastic supporters are local politicians. They want to be seen with him.
Men like incumbent Senator Terry Sanford, recovering from heart surgery and in a close race for re-election.
It helps more than any we've had in a long time. And I think the enthusiasm for Clinton and Gore is just great, and it's rising all the time.
Men like former Governor Jim Hunt, seeking a new term in the governor's office.
These people are here, they're sensing this, they believe we can change, they get excited about it, they're going to go out and work for 1 week as hard as they can work.
In these last days, you can follow the campaign strategy by following their itineraries. Clinton today will be in Florida and Texas, two states that normally go Republican. This year, two states Clinton thinks he can win. John Dancy, NBC News, with the Clinton campaign in North Carolina.
Canada's political future is an open question this morning. Voters have rejected a package of constitutional reforms designed to give special status to ethnic minorities. That decision has revived the separatist movement in Quebec. Canadian leaders now fear the country could break apart. A shakeup at General Motors may not be over. On Monday, Chairman Robert Stemple resigned. Today's Washington Post quotes sources as saying that 6 senior GM executives will be asked to resign as well. And in pro football last night, the Bills buffaloed the Jets 24-20. Buffalo's quarterback Jim Kelly led a 75-yard scoring drive in the final 2 minutes of the game. That's the news and a bit of sports at almost 7:08 this morning. Now back to Katie.
Thanks, Margaret. Well, keeping up with Willard these days is as tough as keeping up with the candidates. We thought that he was off, but he is on, and he is reported for duty, and he's there in Washington.
4 more years.
Hi, Willard.
I'm ready. Listen, first of all, Margaret, you look marvelous. How beautiful. How sweet to have Margaret back again.
Willard, thank you.
And it is Marge, right? I was right. Your nickname is Marge, right? Okay.
No.
Well, those things happen. Hey, listen, I was down with the Maxwell House people in Nashville. We saluted 100 of the finest people in this country who have volunteered and given of their time. Also, the birthday of Maxwell House, they're a century old. And then with the Trucking Association in New Orleans, what a lovely couple of days now back in business. And thanks to Al Roker for showing up this morning. I may pass out before the morning's over, so hang in there. Take a look, a birthday wish and some good news for the West Coast. We'll tell you about that in just a second. Ella Kearns of Crete, Illinois. Pretty as a picture, still sharp as a tack, a very special lady. 101 years old today. Rejoice, beloved, the best news in the world. 2 fronts coming in, one today to Southern California, and by Thursday, one to Northern California. It will bring heavy rain. It will bring snow to the mountains, to the Cascades, and it is a wonderful gift. And maybe this is the pattern we can expect for the winter in California and the West. They desperately need snow cover, and they need moisture. Fog along the Gulf Coast. Otherwise, the country is in fantastic shape. Maybe a few flakes or two and some cooler air in northern Minnesota and northern North Dakota. Here's what's happening in your world, even as we speak.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Scott Mayo. Taking a look at the weather across the Midwest today, not too much is happening. What I'm going to do is put this into motion. These are the past 10 hours, and you're not going to see much change here. Lots of clouds down here to the south around Arkansas. That's where they're receiving rain, but across Iowa, not much happening, and clear skies through the morning hours. That's what we have to look forward to today. Lots of sunshine, 64 degrees. Almost feels like yesterday, and then tonight getting cool once again, 36 degrees, mostly clear skies on your Wednesday, partly cloudy.
Well, you're right, Katie. It's not Marge. Now back to Katie.
Thanks, Willard. Nice tie. A reminder here that President Bush will be with us at 8 o'clock this morning, live from Des Moines, Iowa. When we come back, though, we'll be discussing Ross Perot. But first, at 7:10, this is Today on NBC.
Look, I don't have to prove anything to you people.
Think smart. Think safe. Think Lincoln. No other luxury car maker offers the safety of standard dual airbags and standard anti-lock brakes on every 93 model Lincoln Town Car. With V8 power, a superb ride, and an exceptionally spacious interior. Lincoln Continental with front-wheel drive traction and computer-controlled suspension. Think smart. Think safe. Think Lincoln. At your Lincoln Mercury dealer today.
Who offers personal, professional health care for everything from colds and flu to heart disease and cancer?
The physicians at the Tower Medical Clinic. That's who.
What is the advantage of having a nationally respected medical university in Des Moines?
Receiving medical care from professors who teach tomorrow's physicians. That's what.
How can I get family health care and specialty care under the same roof?
By calling the Tower Medical Clinic at 279-WELL. That's how.
Barbara packed a lunch pail and hot coffee, and yeah, I punched the time clock. In March of 1971, I was laid off. I voted against the 1990 tax increase. You can't raise taxes high enough to satisfy the appetite of Congress to spend money. We got to change the whole way the game is played if we're going to get the deficit under control. And raising taxes is the last thing you ever want to do, and we can't let it happen.
It's savings time at Walgreens Photo Center. Right now, get a second set of regular or supersize prints for just a nickel a print. And choose any of these Polaroid items, just $29.99 each. Polaroid's popular one-step and cool cam instant cameras, or a 4-pack of Polaroid film, a $44.99 value, only $29.99. And order your holiday photo greetings. Walgreens offers 6 beautiful designs, colored envelopes, and a free marker pen. Save on all your photo needs at Walgreens.
On Close Up this morning, Ross Perot. In the last 48 hours, the Texas billionaire has been caught in a firestorm of charges and countercharges, all related to his suspicion that the Bush campaign had planned a dirty tricks campaign against his daughter. NBC's Lisa Myers looks at the controversy and Perot's history of dealing with suspicion and the truth.
Look, I don't have to prove anything to you people.
Yesterday, Perot unexpectedly walked into a news conference to defend himself against suggestions that he is either lying or paranoid in his most recent explanation for dropping out last July. At the time, Perot insisted he was dropping out for patriotic reasons.
I believe it would be disruptive for us to continue our program, and I'm trying to do the right thing. It's that simple.
Now he claims it was because the Republicans mounted a dirty tricks campaign against his daughter, Caroline. The family says the plan was to portray her as a lesbian.
Later, I got this report from a fellow in Arizona through an intermediary saying that he had seen a doctored photograph that they were going to give the tabloids to smear my daughter before her wedding, and that they were going to disrupt the wedding in the church.
The key source of the allegations appears to be this man, Scott Barnes, a convicted wiretapper and known peddler of hoaxes. At least one part of Perot's account, first aired Sunday on 60 Minutes, doesn't square with the facts.
I didn't want 60 Minutes to run it. I didn't give them the story. I told 60 Minutes when they first called me, I said, approach this with great skepticism.
But in August, Perot discussed the story with NBC News and claimed then that there were videotapes and documents to support some of his allegations. The FBI investigated Perot's allegations and so far has found absolutely no evidence of dirty tricks. Perot also took liberty with the truth yesterday when asked about how long he has been recording phone calls.
Only when an irrational person calling in making a threat. That's since the campaign started.
However, sources close to Perot told NBC News that while running his company EDS in the 80s, Perot had a device on his phone to tape callers without their knowledge, and sometimes used it on business calls. At EDS, Perot was so notorious for not telling the truth that well-placed sources say among senior officials, lying was known as Rossing.
You can criticize everything we did or didn't do.
Perot yesterday lashed out against those who challenged his claim that 5 terrorists appeared on his lawn in 1970 or 71. But when asked to produce the person who actually saw the terrorists...
It happened in the middle of the night. There was one man and a dog. I'm not going to get into that with you because it's none of your business.
Ed Rollins, who ran Perot's campaign for 45 days, says Perot sees the world as he wants to see it.
He used to talk about the phone banks, and he said, well, the phone banks are calling and they're ringing off. Look, I'd walk down on the phone banks, and then there'd be very little activity.
Yet few dare tell Perot his prism is distorted.
And I found the whole experience, there was never a reality check. And my sense is there hasn't been a reality check with Ross Perot for a very long time.
Perot is thoroughly skilled in the art of manipulation. One historian likens him to the Wizard of Oz.
Perot is the great conjurer because what he's done is he has a dark side, and he's managed, in the glare of the TV lights, to absolutely hide it.
The dark side of Perot can be ruthless, investigating and attempting to discredit enemies, business adversaries, even those who merely oppose him. Coach Eddie Joseph battled Perot over education reform in Texas.
He tries to discredit you a great deal if you don't agree with him.
The temperamental outbursts that have become part of his campaign pale when compared to the abuse he has heaped on once close aides like Tom Luce. Perot did not know he was being recorded here.
Skip it. I'll skip it. I'll have a meeting after this. When I ask for something, I want it.
Another troublesome tendency, Perot's habit of seeing conspiracies where none exist. He blows up when reporters get near his plane for fear terrorists will get the ID number. He believes the Secret Service is controlled by the CIA. Now the supposed dirty tricks against his daughter.
He's shown a very heightened sense of, let's call it suspicion, as if he were surrounded by plots. And I think that doesn't sort of bode well for the future.
Perot's latest behavior also won't help his chances of pulling off a miracle next week. Not even tens of millions of dollars in ads are likely to erase new questions about his character and fitness to be president. For today, Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
During his news conference Monday, Ross Perot suggested the media check his story about dropping out of the race with his former press secretary, James Squires. Mr. Squires left the Perot campaign shortly after it disbanded in July. This morning, he's at our affiliate in Lexington, Kentucky, WLEX. Mr. Squires, good morning.
Good morning, Katie.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Mr. Perot said you could corroborate his story, that the risk of seeing his daughter's wedding and reputation ruined is what prompted him to drop out of the race last July. Is that what he told you then?
Well, what I can corroborate, Katie, is that he included concern over the potential disruption of Carolyn's wedding in a list of reasons why he planned to withdraw, which he conveyed to me the night before. I can say that he was legitimately concerned about that, but actually I don't think it's the kind of contradiction that I have heard portrayed in Lisa's piece. Basically, he said that because of the change in the political climate and because of the potential of throwing the election into the House with a three-way race, that because his personality had become the main issue in the election, he didn't see any more reason to continue to put his family through the kind of turmoil and expose them to what I think the kind of savage attacks that he and his family did incur during those days. Mm-hmm. And that was really a part of the overall reason. I mean, if I'm not going to do anything but put this in the House where it is most likely to languish for weeks and then ultimately go to the Democrat, then why should I put my family through this? So that's the more complete context as I remember it.
When he told you, Mr. Squires, about his fear that someone was going to disrupt his daughter's wedding or distribute this doctored photo, and even there were plans to wiretap his office, what was your reaction to those concerns expressed by Mr. Perot?
Well, the suggestions about the wiretaps did not come until later after the campaign was suspended. The only time I ever heard anyone mention any wiretaps during our campaign was shortly after Ed Rollins came, when he suggested that because we were in such a tough, mean election with the Republicans whom he had served for many years and whose campaigns he had run, that we ought to make sure that our phones were checked periodically, even in our apartments.
So you're saying Ed Rollins...
That question was raised by Ed Rollins, not Ross Perot.
What about these charges of the doctoring of the photograph? It appears that Mr. Perot had no evidence, no proof. He was just afraid of this happening. Given that, some people believe that Mr. Perot is paranoid and sees conspiracies at every turn. Can you refute that feeling that this seems to raise?
Well, Katie, I certainly don't think that it is anywhere close to the Ross Perot that I came to know during my time with him. I would suggest to you that I could take your cameras and some unnamed sources and prepare the same kind of report on you or on myself or on Mike Gartner, your boss, news chief at NBC. And if you played it on your show as you just played Lisa's piece, we could, in short order, have a caricature of you or me or Mike Gartner placed around the country and in the public mind as an erratic, unstable personality.
Some people, Mr. Squires, are questioning the timing of this story. Why is this coming out 9 days before the election?
Well, I think one of the problems with this story, and the reason that it's caused such a firestorm, is it is another unconventional political act. If you were dealing with a politician who weighed the political impact of everything he says or does, and it certainly makes concessions to the political conventions, you would not do this. I mean, I can see no political advantage to Ross Perot of raising these charges and rekindling this kind of public examination of his own personality, which this was bound to do. So I don't know that there's any political advantage. I think he is a spontaneous man. Unlike most politicians, he says what he thinks at the moment. He reacts harshly to threats to his family, and he reacts sharply to questions about his integrity. And I think that's more like the average person than it is the skilled politicians that we're accustomed to seeing under this pressure.
Two quick questions. How do you think this will affect voters' views toward Ross Perot on Election Day?
You know, I don't think that the people who really want change in this country and who are Ross Perot are going to be affected one iota about this. I do think that any time in a three-way race you have one candidate in this kind of accusation exchange with another, the third benefits. So I would expect that this draws the attention away from the Republican character attacks on Bill Clinton, and therefore Bill Clinton benefits from this.
Quick question, are you still on Ross Perot's payroll, Mr. Squires?
Yes, as a part of my severance package, as are a number of other former campaign employees.
James Squires, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's now 7:23, and we're back in a moment, right after this.
I knew Kmart would have a great price on Gold Star microwaves.
Yeah.
My daughter has her own apartment, so she wants to start cooking. You know, popcorn, frozen dinners.
That's cooking.
For her, just setting foot in the kitchen is a big step.
I still cook my son's meals and put them in Rubbermaid serve and savers. Great price.
Why doesn't your son bring your food to my daughter's new microwave?
I like what we're cooking up here.
Kmart really looks different. It sure does.
Wilford Brimley for new Quaker Oats Plus Fiber.
Every day should feel this good.
Maybe what you need to help feel your best is a good high-fiber cereal. In that case, Quaker's got some good news for you. Quaker Oats Plus Fiber. It's brand new, and it's got as much fiber as a lot of those cold high fibers. But this one, hot Quaker Oats.
Every day should feel this good.
If you hold your nose, you can't really taste things because your sense of smell is so important to taste. That's why great aroma is so important to Folgers. Here, smell for yourself. Come on, it's new TV technology. You smell that? They use aroma-roasted mountain-grown beans, then they specially grind them. No wonder people like Folgers better than this other coffee. No contest.
Folgers, aroma so rich, you can taste it.
It's your turn again, America. Today gives you one final chance to call in and ask Bill Clinton live. Wednesday on America's #1 morning show. Today.
Still to come in our next hour here in Des Moines, we'll be joined by President George Bush. We'll talk with Bill Clinton, Ross Perot, and polls that show him being squeezed by both after a station break.
A fire breaks out at your job, and all the doors are locked shut. It happened at this factory, trapping 25 people inside. Could it happen to you? A Dateline investigation tonight.
It's here, Ultra Downy. It's ultra concentrated for ultra softness.
Wow, all that softness in a little bottle.
A little does a lot, like my Ultra detergent.
Now you don't need a big capful, just a tiny capful of Ultra Downy. It has an extra softener for the extra softness you can see, and Downy freshness.
Now you can get the best softness from a little bottle. So why mess with big ones?
So much softness, so little Ultra Downy.
Good things do come in small packages.
Are we on? Are we rolling?
What's TV like? It's like a day without sunshine. What?
What? Well, it's kind of, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It is a top priority for us. Wouldn't you agree?
I gotta go make a phone call. Can you hang on?
The Van and Connie Show, weekdays at 2:30, only on TV 13.
This 24-hour news update is brought to you by Kitchens by Design.
Good morning, I'm Stacia Strand with this live look at local news on a Tuesday morning, 726, temperature just about 32 degrees. We'll have more from Scott Mayo. Coming up in just a moment, President Bush waking up in our state this morning. The president's whirlwind stop in Des Moines will culminate this morning with an Ask George Bush forum at the Convention Center. But before that, he will be interviewed by Today Show host Bryant Gumbel. Here's the president's itinerary now. He'll be at the Capitol for the interview with Bryant Gumbel. That happened at 7 o'clock this morning. Since the Today Show is tape delayed in Iowa, you'll be able to see the interview in its entirety entirety at 8 o'clock right here on TV 13. And then the president will be off to the Convention Center for an Ask George Bush forum. This begins at 9. And after that, he'll go back to the airport and take off. As we mentioned, President Bush arrived in Des Moines just a little before 6 o'clock last night. Newscenter 13's Jim Strickland was covering his arrival.
The presidential motorcade drew plenty of attention wherever it went. Its path cleared by dozens of police, many of whom had their days off canceled by this visit. Mr. Bush met an enthusiastic crowd outside Republican headquarters where he'd come to tape an interview. Meantime, White House doctor Burton Lee was doing his own glad-handing, signing his autographs, GB's MD. Another throng had gathered outside the embassy suites. Some came from as far away as Kansas.
We want to support the man and want to know that, he has our utmost respect and support.
There were Clinton supporters, too, and a shouting match ensued. As the motorcade lumbered down Locust Street, the president spoke to the crowd from behind bulletproof glass. Instead of stopping to wave to the crowd, the president went on to dinner at a downtown restaurant. But despite their brief glimpse, these folks appeared satisfied.
We were here for an hour. It was worth the whole wait.
Just love President Bush. I believe in everything he says.
As the president emerged from his dinner at the Met's restaurant downtown, police were arresting 3 juveniles who'd reportedly yelled, "We're gonna shoot him." They were parked outside the embassy suites.
Jim Strickland, Newscenter 13.
And right now you are looking at a live picture that we have set up at the Convention Center where President Bush will be addressing an Ask George Bush forum. That'll be this morning, and a rally. And Newscenter 13's Jim Strickland will be joining us live as well, coming up at 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. We do want to get to our forecast. Scott Mayo up next with that.
At Kitchens by Design, we do one thing better than anyone else.
We design the most beautiful kitchens in all of Central Iowa.
Using the superior craftsmanship and innovative styling of Durasupreme cabinetry.
Our designers will create a functional kitchen to fit your lifestyle, whether you're building or remodeling.
Come visit Kitchens by Design in Ames, Fort Dodge, and our new showroom in Governor Square, West Des Moines.
Kitchens by Design, our name says it all.
Good morning to you. Starting out with a cool temperature right now. 31 degrees is a live shot of downtown. Some fog out there in the outlying areas, but we're going to have a nice day here. Calm winds. Temperature expected to reach 64 degrees with mostly sunny skies for you today.
Another new car? Why'd you get tired of the old color?
No, we get a new car every 2 years.
How do you do that?
Oh, it's simple. We lease from our Ford dealer.
Isn't that expensive?
You get a lot more car for your money when you lease. I got this new Taurus with a great stereo, power, everything, even dual airbags for a lot less than you'd think.
For a limited time, you can get special lease rates on Taurus, so see your Ford dealer today.
So thanks to our Ford dealer, we get a new car every 2 years.
In 2 years, I'm lucky to get new windshield wipers.
7 days until election night.
.30 on a Tuesday morning. You're getting a look at the skyline of the capital of Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, where President Bush spent the night last night. Good morning. Welcome back to Today on a Tuesday morning. I'm Bryant Gumbel here in the Law Library of the state capitol in Des Moines, where in our 8 o'clock hour we'll be joined by President George Bush. We'll talk to him about a number of matters, including the polls that show he's got a lot of catching up to do with just 1 week left. Katie Couric's back in New York. Katie, what's up?
Morning again, Bryant. From back here this half hour, we'll have reports on how both the Bush camp and the Clinton camp will be handling the Perot factor this last crucial week of the campaign. It's a wild card that is changing possibly everything. Bryant?
Also, Katie, remember 6 months ago, the big hoopla over the effort to rebuild L.A.? Well, a lot of the enthusiasm, it seems, has faded a bit. We'll be talking with the man who heads the Rebuild L.A. effort, Peter Ubroth, straight ahead in this half hour. But right now, let's go to the news desk. Once again, Margaret Larson. Margaret?
Brian, thank you. With 1 week to go until Election Day, President Bush and Bill Clinton continue on the road today. Independent candidate Ross Perot today is using television ads telling Americans to vote their conscience. On Monday, Perot met with reporters to, quote, get a few things straight, as he put it, about allegations of Republican dirty tricks.
I am sick and tired of you all questioning my integrity without a basis for it. I am sick and tired of you ignoring the people who can confirm the articles when you print or run your stories.
White House officials have called Perot's allegations about plans to wiretap his office and launch a smear campaign against one of his daughters crazy. President Bush has campaign stops today in 3 states, including Iowa, where he'll talk with Bryant a half hour from now. On Monday, he campaigned in Montana, Colorado, and New Mexico, attacking Bill Clinton and attacking the press as well. Earlier, he said his priorities in a second term would be jobs, exports, and health care. Bill Clinton wrapped up a bus tour in North Carolina on Monday, and today he is going on the campaign trail in Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. 2 polls this morning show Clinton leading the president by 11% with 1 week to go before the election. Voters in Canada have turned down a referendum on changing that country's constitution. Among other things, that measure would have given special status to Quebec to protect its language and its culture. There has been more violence in the Middle East following a rocket attack on northern Israel. A teenager was killed. 5 other people were hurt when a rocket hit an apartment building. Israeli planes later attacked targets in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley in retaliation. Several top executives at General Motors reportedly will be asked to resign, according to the Washington Post. That report comes 1 day after the resignation of GM chairman Robert Stempel. Tonight on Dateline NBC, a report on computer hackers and how they get into computer systems. It's a lot easier than you might think. That's on Dateline NBC tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. In Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills beat the New York Jets 24-20. The Bills scoring the winning touchdown with under a minute to go. The Bills are now 5-2. The Jets are 1-6. And in Louisiana, there was a wild brawl during a recent football game between Northeast Louisiana and Northwestern State, but it wasn't among the players, it was between the mascots. Now, if you can believe it, the police had to be called in to break things up. Northeast Louisiana won the game, but it's not too clear who won the fight. Well, this guy thinks he won. Okay, it's now 7:33, time for the weather, and Willard.
This morning's weather is brought to you by Cotton Incorporated. From America's cotton growers. Cotton, the fabric of our lives.
Hey, thank you, Margaret, and thank you, Joe. We need a kinder and gentler chicken, or whatever that thing was. St. Anne's Parish, Annapolis, Maryland, 300 years old. Happy birthday. And speaking of birthdays, Hallmark salutes this morning. How sweet it is. Take a look. This is Lila Gates of Maple Heights, Ohio, is 103. Beautiful lady, loves crossword puzzles. And from Pawtucket, Rhode Island, turn the page, we have Charlotte Couric. And she is a here she comes, right on the next. Pretty girl. There she is. Happy birthday to sweet Charlotte. Beautiful rain in the northwest by tomorrow night. Gorgeous showers today in Southern California. You can't beat it. Here's what's happening in this part of the country right now. Check it out.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Scott Mayo. Taking a look at the weather across the Midwest today, not too much is happening. What I'm going to do is put this into motion. These are the past 10 hours, and you're not going to see much change here. Lots of clouds down here to the south around Arkansas. That's where they're receiving rain, but across Iowa, not much happening, and clear skies through the morning hours. And that's what we have to look forward to today. Lots of sunshine, 64 degrees. Almost feels like yesterday, and then tonight getting cool once again, 36 degrees, mostly clear skies on your Wednesday, partly cloudy.
Now here's Katie.
Thanks, Willard. Coming up, Bryant talks with Peter Uberoth about South Central Los Angeles 6 months after the riots. And at 8 o'clock, joining us in Des Moines, Iowa, will be President George Bush. We'll be back after these messages.
With wrinkled brows, the old have singing, deep sorrow, great joy. What does it mean? The touch, the feel, the fabric of our lives, the touch, the feel of cotton, the fabric of our lives.
10 reasons to call Nutrisystem now. Another great reason to call Nutrisystem now. You get 50% off program services. Nutrisystem meals additional. 50% off. Hurry, offer ends Thursday.
You got kids? You got germs.
Hold it.
You definitely need Liquid Dial. It has a unique antibacterial formula other liquid soaps don't. So why not wash with a soap that's made to kill germs? Liquid Dial. Kill the germs. Keep the kids.
Oh, look how we've changed.
At JCPenney, we're really turning things around. We're looking for more quality.
Inside and out.
Upside and down.
We've raised our standards.
Behind the scenes.
Around the neck.
And across the board.
And while we're turning more of our attention to quality,
one thing remains the same.
Our great values.
And our great values are everywhere you turn.
Welcome to Hotel Views, business clubs, Holiday Inn or Ramada, Bob?
Susan, you boardroom bow wow. Holiday Inn has a business club. It's got bonus points, your gifts, everything. Wake up, Susan. Smell of coffee.
I smell something, Bob, and it's not French roast. Look, Ramada's business card program has all that and more. At Ramada, you can earn bonus points faster toward over 10,000 gifts. Plus, your spouse stays free. Tell us, Bob, when did your brain check out? Face it, for business clubs, Ramada's in.
This week, own the movie you've been waiting for. It's time to follow your heart. It's time to discover the enchantment. It's time to touch the magic again. Own the Academy Award-winning Beauty and the Beast, coming to videocassette.
This is Scrutinized. It's a game where you find as many things that start with the same letter in pictures like these.
Football, a fountain, a flounder, a fan. No, just right flounder.
It's also a game you'll really get into.
Pajamas, a Pomeranian. Parrot.
Peppermilk, Pekingese. Yes. A flag.
There's a balloon.
And pants. Ready for round two?
Okay, now.
Honey, this is the flounder, okay?
Play Scrutinized. 24 pictures, thousands of images.
After Los Angeles exploded in racial unrest 6 months ago, one of Mayor Bradley's first official acts was to name former baseball commissioner Peter Ueberroth to head the effort to rebuild the city. His Rebuild LA task force was formed amid great expectations and high hopes, both of which have been tempered somewhat by bureaucratic reality and the passage of time. This morning, Peter Ueberroth is in our Burbank studio. And Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
Peter, 6 months ago when you began this effort, there was a tremendous outpouring of enthusiasm. Now that seems to have dimmed somewhat. Is that a misperception?
Oh, I think that's true to some extent. It always happens after any kind of catastrophe or any kind of terrible thing like a riot that disrupts a city. Everyone rushes forward. Everyone wants to do something good, but it's the sustainers that are going to be counted over the long pull. It took 40 years to destroy an inner city, not 3 days, and it's taken inner cities across America, that is, and it's going to take a real time, hard work, real effort to change it.
I remember back in May, you said that you were receiving hundreds of calls from corporate sponsors who wanted to get involved, who wanted to try to help revive neighborhoods. Have most of those people disappeared?
Not at all. That's the good part. Corporate America, corporate world, whether they're from Japan or Europe or the United States, are standing real tall, and they're coming into the inner city like they've never been before. I mean, you have a story this morning on General Motors. General Motors, in the midst of lots of problems and reorganizing, they're honoring their commitments, and you know, we're rolling out cars to charitable groups that are helping in the inner city. So, no, the corporate side has been real good, and there's all kinds of heroes and heroines in the side of the people in the streets. I mean, you know Los Angeles as well as anybody, and there's a great coming together, and that's going to continue. But I mean, this inner cities in America, you pick one, New York, Chicago, Dallas, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles. Unless we cure them and work real hard and long, you know, the future's not too bright.
Good as the corporate side has been, that's how troubled the political side has been. We all saw the pictures shortly after the riots. A lot of well-intentioned people came, gave nominal support to your efforts right after the riots. But government promises have not been realized. Who do you blame for that?
Elected officials who have not had the courage to fight their way through the system. I mean, all of them came here. All of them had hearings, whether the state or the federal level, but not a bit of legislation has been passed to change the inner city. Brian, it's not just that they're going to go in. It's not a money issue. It's not dump money on the inner city. Nobody wants that. What people want is to change the inner city, to erase a red line around an area that we've really disregarded or neglected over a whole bunch of years. And we just haven't seen the government act. They've not done, the elected officials, not the bureaucrats have done their job. you know, small business and FEMA and all the rest. They've tried their best under tough circumstances. But I'm talking about an administration. You got to give them credit. They've done a really remarkable job. But there's not a single bit of legislation that has been passed that importantly helps an inner city.
But as you know, the urban aid bill, complete with its enterprise zone, $38 million in housing credits, is awaiting a president's signature. He's now saying he'll veto it. Is that going to set you back?
Well, it's going to set us back in a huge way, but you can't blame him. I mean, it's a less than $3 billion for inner cities all over America for 5 years. By the time the bill gets to his desk, it's got nearly $30 billion worth of junk. I mean, yacht taxes and all kinds of nonsense. That's the system broken down without people on both sides of the aisle having the courage to say, let's do it right now. Let's do it right for a change.
Let's listen to some criticism from a different source. Listen for a moment to these comments, if you would, from Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
Oh.
It's not going to get done by Peter Uberoff and the committee. They don't know how to do it. Peter Uberoff has not, even after 6 months, put together a plan to do it. So the community can't worry about that. We must keep going. We must keep organizing and working in the best way that we can. And I'm convinced that we will be able to get some things done.
Her views, her anger, Peter, how typical, how atypical is it?
Well, I don't think it's very typical, but, you know, there's a whole lot of people who stand on the sidelines and yell, you know, shout and yell from all sides. I mean, liberals, conservatives, you know, she's a member of Congress. Why didn't we get anything voted on? I mean, why not one issue? And I'm not critical of her. I mean, everyone can take their shots at, they always take shots at the person who's perceived to be the leader, and that's fair game. But the truth is, the government sector has not passed legislation that helps the inner city since the riots. They said they would. They have not.
What about the grand plan, Peter? Is there any confusion, as some reports would seem to suggest, over where the grand plan responsibility lies, whether it's with you and RLA or whether it's government officials?
Well, you know, it's everybody. So there's no confusion, but there's always people standing on the sidelines and, you know, either take a poke at something. But the truth is, it takes the people first. People in the communities are rising up. There's, as I said, there's all kinds of people doing real things, cleaning up an inner city, doing what they can do best. It takes the private sector not to ignore the inner city, and that's starting to come along. And if government will grab their piece, we'll have something that moves forward. But you can't, you know, America, there's never a single choice. It takes everybody. We used to build ships in 5 days in California. You can't get a permit to plant a tree in 50 days. So we have to change in the central part of our cities, and all cities. If we don't do it, the other side is not very attractive.
Quick answer. You discouraged, frustrated?
Discouraged and frustrated, but it's not, the fight's still here.
All right. Peter, take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to come on back in just a moment, get back to politics, see what Ross Perot is doing to everybody else's campaign strategy. We'll do that after a break. From Des Moines, Iowa, this is Today on NBC.
That I am nothing more than a temporary tenant and your chief hired hand.
Turn the key, here we go. I feel the power around, excitement flow.
This car, for this low price, how does Pontiac do it?
Pontiac Smart Buy. Buy the 93 Pontiac Grand Prix for just $239 a month.
We are driving.
Don't lease. Buy this Pontiac Grand Prix. Built right here in the heartland for just $239 a month. See your Golden Circle Pontiac dealers.
History tells us the fight for justice is not easily won. There are those who are powerful, who will oppose and intimidate. The fight for women's equality is before you now. Those who oppose it are using deceit and trickery to rob all generations of Iowa women of their equality. The claims aren't just pathetic. They're dangerous lies. Vote yes on Amendment 1 for liberty and justice for all.
Taste a whole new kind of Welch's grape juice. Introducing Welch's Grape Juice Blends. 100% juices with no sugar added.
This isn't only grape.
It's grape and apple.
Extraordinary blends with all the rich, full taste of Welch's grape juice and other natural fruit juices.
I've got peaches in my grape juice.
New Welch's Grape Juice Blends.
Take the time to taste the Welch's.
Take advantage now of rebates, 7% financing, and 5 years parts and labor free on American Standard high-efficiency heat pumps, add-on heat pumps, and furnaces. Call Northway's Conditioned Air for details on these offers, and be sure to ask about the American Standard heat pump, the machine that is 2 machines in 1. It heats and cools your home. When you want quality, reliability, and high efficiency, ask for American Standard and Northway's Conditioned Air. American Standard, built to a higher standard.
Americans will elect their next president 1 week from today. With that in mind, both the Bush and Clinton campaigns are busy adjusting their last-minute strategies. We have 2 reports, starting with NBC's Andrea Mitchell on the Clinton campaign.
With Ross Perot threatening to tip the balance in states like North Carolina, Bill Clinton's message in this final week is that he is the real outsider, the real agent of change. Perot is even more of a factor in the Midwest, draining Clinton's support in Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin. Clinton will be returning to those states in the campaign's closing days, at times sounding more like Perot than Perot.
And I'll wake up every day in that White House with the idea that it is not my house, it's your house. That I am nothing more than a temporary tenant and your chief hired hand.
The campaign claims it is not surprised by Perot's surge.
A lot of undecided voters had a place to go home to in Ross Perot, and he had a lot of exposure.
With a week to go, Clinton no longer has to guard against overconfidence. Perot and Clinton's narrowing lead have taken care of that. The campaign's biggest fear is that magazine covers like Newsweek's last week will make anti-Bush voters think they can vote for Perot as a protest because Clinton has it wrapped up.
We take everything, every candidate, every issue, everything seriously. But then I think that the worst thing that could happen to us is to get detracted from our basic message.
Clinton strategists also don't want to see more pictures like this one. The candidates looking too relaxed for these closing days.
We got a tough week ahead, and we're going to fight like hell every day of that week.
Trying to appeal to dissatisfied Republicans and Perot supporters, Clinton now talks about ignoring party labels.
Talk to your friends and neighbors and tell them that it won't kill them if they hold their nose this one time and vote for a Democrat because they'll like what they get.
And he is constantly trying to shake off Bush's claim that he is a traditional tax and spend liberal Democrat.
I want people to see that all over America there's a new Democratic Party inspired by the kind of hard-headed, practical, progressive feelings that you now see in the Democrats in the West and in the South in my region.
Clinton started campaigning earlier, so Bush has more money left for the final push, and Perot will outspend them both this week. But the Democrats say they can match the opposition dollar for dollar in the most important states. The candidate isn't taking anything for granted.
Fight on till November 3rd. Fight, 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 and we'll win it. Thank you, and God bless you all.
The Clinton campaign thinks Perot may have peaked, but they're not taking any chances. From now until Election Day, they will run flat out, trying to persuade undecided voters that Perot is not a credible alternative for change. For today, Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, with the Clinton campaign in Durham, North Carolina.
And of course, in our next hour, Bryant will talk with President George Bush about the changing Republican strategy in this last week of the election. We just got a story in right now. Israeli radio is reporting this morning that Israeli tanks have just entered Lebanon. That is all the details we have right now. We'll of course, keep you apprised as the details become available. And we'll be back with more on Today right after these messages.
Kmart's got a great price on Clairol's lasting color. It really lasts, so I don't have to color my hair so often. What causes gray hair? It's hereditary. You get it from your kids. Here's the Lubriderm. 75-cent instant coupon. This is the best moisturizer for me.
You know dry skin is hereditary. You get it from your mother when she makes you do the dishes.
You know what else you get from your mother? Money for clothes.
Speaking of clothes, I hear Kmart has some really nice new things now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Just how many noodles did we put into Campbell's new double noodle soup?
101, 102, 103, 100.
Let's put it this way.
321, 322, 323.
Any more noodles, and we couldn't call it soup. Campbell's new double noodle soup. Twice the noodles, twice the satisfaction.
Unlike big juice companies, we have a different idea about corporate ladders, mergers, even stockholders' meetings.
Morning, Ed. Hi, Bob.
Florida's Natural brand is a nut-from-concentrate orange juice made by a co-op of Florida growers whose only business is making juices. They own the land, they own the trees, they own the company. It makes for a difference you can taste. Florida's Natural brand premium orange juice.
Something to say. Now's the time to get it off your chest.
Monday, I soak my dentures. Tuesday, I brush. Wednesday, I soak.
Wait, Denture Cream does it all. Better. Denture Cream cleans twice as well as soaks, works faster, and has twice the mint. Denture Cream does it all. Better.
You're just in time for Red Lobster's 3 new trios, just $9.99. Our new seafood trio, our shrimp trio, and our mixed grill. All 3, $9.99. So hurry in for something great tonight at Red Lobster.
You know, all families catch colds, even doctors' families, like the O'Connors. For Mrs. O'Connor's cold, her husband recommends Dimetapp. It's the brand recommended by doctors over 200 million times. Now there's something new, Dimetapp liquid gels. 4-hour liquid gels are concentrated medicine that relieves congestion, sneezing, sniffling, really fast. Doctors trust Dimetapp for their families. Shouldn't you trust it for yours? For 12-hour relief, try Dimetapp Extend Tabs.
At Easy Spirit, we've made high heels that are as comfortable as sneakers. So just imagine what we can do for a casual shoe. Easy Spirit casuals. There really is a sneaker inside every shoe.
We're back at 7:53. I'm Katie Couric here in New York, and Bryant Gumbel is in Des Moines, Iowa, getting ready to play host to President Bush. Bryant, are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I am, Katie. Actually, it's been a long time since we had a chance to talk. I remember 4 years ago when the president was running against Michael Dukakis. On Today, we dedicated a whole day to Republican efforts and another day to Democratic efforts, and the president was kind enough to give us a half hour then. When he was vice president, and I haven't spoken to him officially since then. I've talked to him unofficially since a couple of times, but yeah, this will be enjoyable.
It's funny because initially during the campaign, Bryant, the president was fairly reticent to appear on morning shows such as the Today Show, and now if you look at the programming notes for all the networks, it's like the parade of the candidates here on the morning programs.
Yeah, we're almost at take a number status at this point right now. Nonetheless, any opportunity is welcome, and we're certainly not going to turn down the chance. I'm looking forward to it. The president's been keeping a busy schedule. I'm glad we got a part of it.
In fact, he's crisscrossing practically the entire country this week, isn't he? I mean, he's going nonstop. Yeah, that's true. That's true. In fact, I think he's got 3 states on his agenda today. He came in last night fairly early, though. He was in here about 6 o'clock last night, and so he did get some rest here. All right, well, as you can hear, there's a little music playing in the background, Bryant, and that means we need to close out this hour.
Plus, which I keep looking down the hall, Katie, and expect him to make an appearance any moment.
He'll be there, trust me.
It's your turn again, America. Today gives you one final chance to call in and ask Bill Clinton live. Wednesday on America's #1 morning show, Today. This is a Newscenter 13 update.
Good morning, I'm Stacia Strand with this look at local news on a Tuesday morning at 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. Temperature in the low 30s right now. As Bryant Gumbel just mentioned on the Today Show there, the president did arrive in Des Moines about 6 o'clock last night. Mr. Bush woke up early this morning. The president's whirlwind stop in Des Moines will culminate this morning with a welcome rally at the convention center. Our TV 13 crew was set up hours ago at the State House. This is the president here. You can see walking in to meet NBC Today Show co-host Bryant Gumbel. Gumbel taped an interview with the president last hour, about 7 o'clock, they taped that interview. Now, you can see it in its entirety just a few moments from now right here on TV 13. As soon as we return to the Today Show at 8 o'clock, they'll have that interview. Now, President Bush will head over to the convention center shortly. He is expected there for an Ask George Bush forum and a welcome rally. Newscenter 13 will carry this live at 9 o'clock this morning. Now, like the state capitol, the convention center downtown Des Moines was hopping with activity well before many of you probably woke up this morning. Joining us live at the center now, our own Jim Strickland. Jim, when last we talked with you on Today in Iowa this morning, it looked like the bands and the banners were all in place to welcome the president.
That's right, Stacia. And now the people are getting in place as well. Again, I'm told there are about 3,000 seats here for this Ask George Bush reception. This is not a late arriving crowd. The doors opened at 7:30, and they were ready to stream in here and try to get the best seat they possibly could. There are VIP seats up front and regular general admission seats down here back where we were standing. Again, the president will be asking, or rather answering questions asked by his supporters here in this crowd. It'll be interesting to find out if anyone asks him about those charges that Ross Perot has leveled against the Republican Party. The president's campaign has been sidetracked a bit trying to deal with that issue instead of getting his message out about the economy. His stop here in Des Moines and later in Kentucky will focus on his economic message, the fact that he can hit the ground running right after Election Day and not have to wait through a transitional period like the Clinton campaign would have to do. The president wants to talk about economics here, and no doubt his supporters will give him the types of questions that can get his message out. Again, you'll see that interview with Bryant Gumbel coming up in just a few moments here on TV 13, and then our live coverage begins at 9 o'clock. Stacia?
Jim, real quick, have you had a chance to look around outside? What is security like for people traveling downtown this morning?
Well, when we first got in here, of course, there wasn't a lot of traffic on the streets. When I came back from the Capitol to this building, we saw plenty of Des Moines police squad cars taking care of the intersections because, of course, there will be a bit of a motorcade route from the Embassy Suites Hotel here to the convention center. So those intersections are blocked off, but the street that will be closed will probably only be shut down to regular downtown traffic for 5 or 10 minutes until the president's motorcade gets here. That should happen just short of 9 o'clock. The president will get here and get right to work with this crowd.
Okay, Jim Strickland will be talking with you throughout the morning. Okay. Jim live at the convention center, as he mentioned, we'll carry that live at 9 o'clock. Right now, though, we want to check on the forecast with Scott Mayo. He's coming up next.
It's savings time at Walgreens Photo Center. Right now, get a second set of regular or supersize prints for just a nickel a print. And choose any of these Polaroid items, just $29.99 each. Polaroid's popular one-step and cool cam instant cameras, or a 4-pack of Polaroid film, a $44.99 value, only $29.99. And order your holiday photo greetings. Walgreens offers 6 beautiful designs, colored envelopes, and a free marker pen. Save on all your photo needs at Walgreens.
Better grab that jacket when you head outside this morning. Right now, 31 degrees, clear skies, and some fog out there.
Get into a brand new Chevrolet or Geo at great savings now. See Carl Chevrolet Geo on this exciting 92 Storm for just $93.98, a 5-speed with air. And the fuel-efficient 5-speed Metro with air for only $67.84. Our biggest seller, the ever-popular Lumina. Clearance sale price, $13,359. And 7-passenger Lumina APVs as low as $17,306. Save on 92 holdovers at Carl Chevrolet Geo, Ankeny, exit 90 off I-35.
Coming up on the next Van and Connie show, we're going to talk about vegetables.
Also, the world champions of video games. Is this that little Mario guy that hops around?
Something like that.
20 days until election night.
Back now, 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. It's the 27th of October of 1992, and you're looking at the state capitol in Des Moines, Iowa. A glimpse at the rotunda. We're inside the law library. We're on about the 3rd floor, and we are joined this morning by the President of the United States, George Bush. Mr. President, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Thank you for being with us, sir. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm delighted to be here.
Before we talk about the election, I just showed you this bulletin that just ran across the wires. Israeli radio reporting that Israeli tanks have entered Lebanon. Can you tell us anything more
I really know nothing about it. My national security advisor is with me, or Admiral Howe, and so it's not brought to my attention at all.
How do you view the likelihood, if in fact this report is true, of it derailing what had been considerable progress along the peace talks?
Well, I don't think, speculating on this, just I shouldn't do it. But I think the peace talks are going forward. I think both Mr. Rabin and his interlocutors from these other countries and interests are committed to keeping the talks going. So I would hope that nothing could come up that would derail them. And it is my view that they've gone far enough and there's enough commitment that no incident will derail the talks.
As you know, the rocket duels in southern Lebanon have raged for several days now with some loss of life in the Israeli side. Do you think that loss of life warrants action on their part,
Well,
as this would seem to suggest?
I can't speculate on it, and I'd leave that to the potential combatants, but obviously we would prefer peaceful solutions to all these questions. And I just can't speculate until I know more about it.
Will you be working the phones to...
Oh, I'm sure we will, yeah.
Mr. President, I know you're fond of... Let's talk politics. I know you're fond of the bumper sticker that says...
oh, I love it.
Says, re-elect George Bush, annoy the press.
No, annoy the media.
Annoy the media.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, you've opted to join us this week. This program twice, our competitors this week, some other outlets as well. Why the sudden change of heart?
No change of heart. I've been doing these things for a long time.
In these particular kind of forums, you have not?
Well, you mean 25 minutes?
No, I'm talking about 25 minutes coming on live on a morning program.
Oh, yeah. Go back to the Rose Garden. I think it was a couple of months ago, wasn't it, when I was out there with the rival network, but nevertheless doing it. So, but it's not, look, when I say annoy the media, I can be selective in this. You know, and I know that there has not been great objectivity this year. So otherwise, why would they be having these programs, Brian, like Ted Koppel at night, saying, have we been fair? And having a lot of these talking heads come on to analyze whether it's been fair. I don't, you've been in politics, a key observer, and so have I. So, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Otherwise, the mice, and I say, hold up that bumper sticker, annoy the media, re-elect Bush, there's an overwhelming response. Great demand for the bumper sticker. There wouldn't be if people didn't know what I was talking about.
Let the record show that when you said you know and I know, there's a lack of objectivity.
You don't.
In this case, I disagree.
You're doing the questioning, but you think it's been entirely fair all year.
You wouldn't expect me to say otherwise.
No, I would.
Okay. I know that the polls are showing a tightening of the race, and I know that you are expressing great optimism and would surely expect you to. But the fact of the matter is that the electoral numbers continue to show you way behind with a week to go. In fact, allowing for those states that are beyond the margin of error, polls show you winning just 4 states with a total of 22 electoral votes. So write the scenario for me. What states are you going to overtake your opposition in to write a surprising ending to this election?
Well, I don't know how you record on this electoral map, because I vowed not to. I just don't watch it. We've got wonderful people that understand all these electoral maps and all. But how do you record Iowa in this contention? We're in Iowa today. Just by way of example, I believe I'm going to win Iowa. Why? Because we have got a sound agricultural program. Ag income is up. The export program for pork has been real good. Our NAFTA agreement is good. And ethanol is up under my administration. I've made an ethanol decision that really pleases the corn growers. I believe I'll win Iowa. But I don't know how it shows up on an electoral map.
Again, an electoral map in this case, it shows it within the margin of error, and it shows it still leading with Bill Clinton at 38-31.
Well, that might be right, see, but I think that's no hill for a climber at the end here. I could remind you of election after election where people went into the election of 10 points back. Mitch McConnell in Kentucky, John Engler in Michigan. 10 points the day of the election, only to win. So I cannot get overly analytical on polls and electoral maps. All I know is there's a sea change in the country, and I feel it. Everybody traveling with us feels it. Climb off the plane last night here in Iowa. They feel it. There's something happening out there, Brian.
Again, I don't deny your optimism and would surely expect it of you. But as we sit here, you've been president now for roughly 200 weeks. And the majority of the American people have decided that they don't want you to be their president again, at least if we're to believe the polls.
Exactly.
What's going to happen in this next week that'll make them reverse their field after 200 weeks?
They're going to sit down in the polling booth and they're going to compare the individual candidates, and they're going to say to themselves, look, things haven't gone too great on the economy, but let's put it in perspective. We're growing in this country, and things have been told all the time how bad it is, but look, there's an underpinning here of encouragement, and then they're going to say, who do we really trust to do this job? Who would I trust for the country in a crisis? Who would I trust with my family? And I believe on that basis, I'll win. And I do believe, Bryant, that character and trust are very important credentials in selecting a president. I don't think they've been in focus. I think a lot of people say, look, I'm in hardship case here. I don't know how it's going to be tomorrow. I'm worried. I'm going to take it out on George Bush at the early stages. In the final analysis, they're going to look at how the economy really is, and then they're going to look at the personal traits. And Barbara Bush and I have tried to uphold the people's trust living in that White House.
Should they blame
Plus,
George?
they'll think of the world. They'll think of, hey, wait a minute. We hear all this criticism of the economy, but my gosh, my kids go to bed at night without the same fear of nuclear weapons. Your kids do that.
But you know as well as I do, they're much more concerned with their own backyard right now.
Well, but I remember when they were very concerned about nuclear war, and they're going to give a little credit. There's my point. I haven't heard anything on any of these public forums about foreign policy or all of this, and I think we've got a very, very good record.
Should those people be blaming George Bush for their economic woes?
Well, I'll take my share of the blame, but when they look around and they see Japan growing at half the rate of the United States, maybe less, some figures will come out today, just in about an hour. Wait and see whether we're growing. I maintain we've been growing for 6 straight quarters, and most people think we're in a deep recession. They'll take a look at it, and they'll be fair. We're doing better than Europe. We're doing better than Canada. We're in a global, interconnected slowdown, and the U.S. has a better economy. And people, you know, up till now, I don't think people knew this, Brian. So then they say, hey, blame the president. That's fine. I accept my share of the blame. But then give us our share of the credit if we're moving. Interest rates down, inflation down.
Let me move on to a different matter.
Yeah.
Marlon Fitzwater, your spokesman, called Ross Perot, and I'm quoting him, a paranoid person who has delusions. You agree with that characterization?
I agree that this recent incident is crazy. I agree with it. It's crazy. I mean, an allegation that we would wittingly or in any other way try to break up a man's daughter's wedding, particularly not even in the presidential race at that time. What in the world would be the reason for that? And I mean, I don't understand it. But I do see that Mr. Perot, to his credit, said he accepted the fact that it didn't happen and now go on about the business. Well, but that's after going on a national program and throwing out all kinds of insinuations.
He said he did, in fact, say he accepted White House denials, but he did not back off his charges in any way.
Well, go ask him about it. I saw that.
Well, but we tried to get the answers out of him. He said, for example, that he had a White House meeting scheduled, and after telling someone at the top what was at the top of the agenda, which was, in his mind, Republican dirty tricks, the meeting was canceled, and that he expected a call from you or Jim Baker. Should he have gotten such a call?
No, there's no expectation of a discussion of dirty tricks. In fact, I think CBS showed a letter when I said, look, the date that we talked about is inconvenient. Please give me a holler when you want to meet. I mean, come on, this is strange. And I just don't understand it. But I think I am glad that he has said there's nothing to it. But that's after airing it to how many million viewers that other rival program had.
That's all right. His past is, as you know, littered with conspiracy allegations. Well, many of them unproven, many of them proven false. Do you think such a man has the temperament qualifies him to be president?
Well, I'm not here to characterize Ross Perot.
Why not?
I just think I'm much better, because you guys do a good job of that. Well, you've already summed it up, your view, or some people's view.
But you've assailed Clinton's pattern of your words,
yeah, but he's the main opponent.
Deception and obfuscation. Why not assail Mr. Perot's if
well,
it's
I've
in
already
fact
told you what
warranted?
I think about this particular charge, but I want to concentrate on Governor Clinton. I believe that's the main opponent. I'm not going to stand out here and waste my time analyzing this problem. It's been I think, reviewed. And I think he has said there's nothing to it. That's the end of it as far as I'm concerned. And I think he wants to put an end to it. But I will confess to you, strange.
Let me not talk about Mr. Perot specifically, but what he's doing. It's conservatively estimated that he has already spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million in pursuit of your job. And that in the final week, he may go another 20, 25 million. Does that kind of extravagance offend you? It's not illegal.
I find it a little bizarre. I mean, I find it that it's, put it this way, most unusual. I don't know what to say about it. You got me. You got me. I'd say most unusual. But put it this way. Don't worry about him. He's got plenty left.
Oh, I'm sure he does. I mean, he's going, we're told, at the rate of $2 to $3 million a day. I'm just wondering
what is that in percentage of $3 billion? I mean, my mind gets boggled by a guy that has $3 billion. And you give credit for the fact he's earned it, but I don't understand.
I simply ask it because you're a man who spent your whole life in public office.
No, half of it, please.
Right,
this is a very key point.
Okay.
I worked for a living.
Okay.
For half my adult life in business, had a job, met a payroll, excuse me.
That's all right. But you've pursued offices in the normal fashion.
Yes.
Do you not find it somewhat offensive that a man can come and, because he has very deep pockets, try to buy his way in?
I find it a little unusual in the history of American politics. Most unusual. But we got to focus. There's not that many billionaires out there that can buy into these elections. So what I think you need to do is focus on campaign reform. One way to make it better is to eliminate these political action committees, something I've proposed, something Congress has refused to go along with. But in the next term, we're going to get it done. Great thing about the next term, Bryant, is no more campaigns, no more elections, no more politics intervening. Get the people's business done. And that's what's the good thing about a second term. You have new people. We got great ideas for how to improve things. I think we can get it done. A lot of good things and there's going to be so many new members of Congress that we won't be up against this gridlock.
Do you blame Americans, though, Mr. President, when they hear that and accept you at your word and know you as a man of goodwill, but say, hey, wait a minute, I've heard this before. Yeah. I remember this president promising to create 29 million new jobs in 8 years, and yet 4 years later, we've suffered a net loss in jobs, and we've lost 1 million manufacturing jobs.
Wait a minute, not a net loss in jobs. We've increased, but not near as much. But I think people say, wait a minute. He intended to do that, but there is has been a world recession. Now there's a global slowdown. Our economy is growing, and yet most people around this country have until quite recently felt that our economy was still declining. It's not. Unemployment is down. The gross domestic product, we'll see what happens today, but I'm confident that the sixth quarter of growth will be announced. I just believe it. Most experts believe it. I hope it's robust growth, as a matter of fact, but it won't, maybe I pin my hopes on stuff too much, but I think you're going to find that people are beginning to say, look, we understand that. This man was faced with some global slowdown.
That's the best take on it, Mr. President.
Exactly.
You yesterday, for example, in Denver, sat there and cited some priorities in a Bush second term. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said jobs, exports, and health care, correct?
Well, yeah, those are among them, but
okay.
I've got several others too.
Okay, but what do you say to the American voter who says, yeah, I like that, but why didn't I hear it 3 years ago?
Well, I'd say you heard it, but we were blocked for the second half of the term by a Congress that was determined, the leadership of which was determined not to see progress. You see, they felt early on the only way they could win the election is if everything was going to hell in a handbasket. I proposed as recently as my State of the Union message 3 things to stimulate small business: investment tax allowance, capital gains that would stimulate building new businesses, and a credit for first-time home buyers. And we've never gotten the legislation down, or all I get is tax increases from it.
Mr. President, no one questions the legislation that you offered.
Yes.
What people do question is the enthusiasm with which you attack it. Example. Yeah. Following the Gulf War, when your approval ratings were running very high, you went up to Capitol Hill and you laid out a domestic agenda, and you set down a 100-day marker. And yet when the 100 days pass, your critics say you walked away from it. Why didn't you press it?
I pressed it. And the United States Congress, for the reasons I gave you, don't move on it. Now that's going to change because they are so discredited. The same crowd has controlled Congress in the House of Representatives, Bryant, for 38 straight years. You'd hear Governor Clinton talking about change. How about changing that?
But you and
they decided they did not want me to get any progress. But what's going to change now is the Congress. You're going to have over 100 new members, a quarter of the House of Representatives.
It's still going to be Democratic. The chairman of the committees are still going to be the same, and you know that.
Well, if it is the same, the people are going to have to listen, though, that come in there to the same voters I do. You don't hear any of them running on the status quo. Balanced budget amendment, line item veto, check off for taxes. I'll bet you a lot of the Democrats favor those things this year. And so do most every Republican I know do. So we'll say, get the people's business done. You forget that we accomplished a lot in the first term. We got the most ambitious civil rights bill, the ADA bill, Americans with Disabilities Act. We got the Clean Air bill done. We got a highway bill passed, even in this climate. We got many good things done. But we get a lot more done when this Congress has changed.
I'm smiling because I know you're a baseball man. Your son is with baseball club. They just hired a new manager yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that.
In fact, you know as well as I do, in baseball, when the team doesn't perform, you don't fire the whole team, you fire the manager.
That's right.
Why should the American people do otherwise?
Well, let's think of some other analogy. Let's think of some analogy.
Didn't like that one?
Or how about Lasorda? He didn't have a particularly good year, but he's a damn good manager. Tommy Lasorda.
But they're not firing the team there either.
Well, he'll be back, but the people will. There may be some changes on the team, but the manager will be back because he's earned the confidence of the team and the people, and everyone knows he's a good manager. So how about that? And hey, fast thinking, Brian.
Not bad. Rightly.
No, it's good. It's good.
I thought you'd like the first one. That's okay.
If you want another baseball analogy, it ain't over till Cabrera swings. How do you like that one? Getting into the
That's okay. That's all right. I'll accept that one for now. Rightly or wrongly, Mr. President, the perception exists that George Bush is out of touch, that he doesn't connect with the people who are suffering, that he's a man of position and privilege who you often hear just doesn't get it. Do you resent it?
Yeah, I don't like that. It's not true. I don't like things that aren't true.
What do you think it stems from?
Democrat campaign, incessant pounding during the primaries and elsewhere. Go back. I mean, there wasn't that impression a year ago. And then what happened? You had 7 Democrats walk onto the field, each one knowing the only way I can win is to say how lousy everything is in the country and go after George Bush. And he went after me with a vengeance. And I've started to strike back now. And so I think that's plus the economy. I think that gave them a kind of a toehold in which to slug the president. But I expect that, Brian. I'm a grown-up fella, and I've been around the track. But I also put my confidence in the innate fairness of the American people. And, you know, that's the way to do it.
Let's take a look. Let's talk economics. To address our budget woes, you have proposed entitlement caps, a tax checkoff plan, and spending cuts.
And a balanced budget amendment and a line item veto.
Cuts that can only come in the main from, if you'll agree with me, defense and health care.
No, I don't agree with you.
You don't agree with me. Where else?
Well, we have in our budget that's up there in the Congress right now 30 examples of places that can be, the growth can be constrained. People say cuts. I am not proposing cuts in the mandatory programs. I am saying don't let them grow at a faster rate, and let them grow to population, let them grow to inflation, but cap them. And therein lies some hardship. It isn't going to be easy, but there are 30 different areas where you can sit down with the Congress, and I'm not going to do it now, because say one comes in, or at the veterans field, and they want more than the growth of normal programs, or whatever else it is. And so it's not just those areas.
Are you prepared to tell those older citizens that they're going to have to make do with those caps and do with less options than they were entitled to
Not
before?
necessarily less options, but that the growth won't accelerate. And also, I'd like to correct one thing, because unlike others, I have set aside Social Security. I think Social Security is a different kind of a program. It was fixed in the Reagan-Bush administration. It does not need to be tampered with. So when we talk about the caps, et cetera, Social Security is exempt. It's quite a large portion of this, too, but we can do it without touching Social Security. And now, as in every 4-year cycle, the Democrats go around, particularly in the areas where the less affluent areas, and putting little things on the doorknobs. Bush will cut Social Security. It's the oldest ploy in the world, and there's nothing to it. But it's shameless what they do. Now they've thrown in Medicare to boot.
You talked of less affluent areas. Excuse me. Within the past half hour, I had a conversation with Peter Ueberroth, who, as you know, is heading the Rebuild LA effort, and he expressed some frustration with the pace of government. Why have we heard...
He's expressed frustration with the pace of getting his job done, but he's a very good man.
I don't deny that.
Private sector is what he's talking about, and he's doing a good job of trying to bring... But I'll tell you what's frustrating to Peter Ueberroth is because he came east to the White House with Mayor Bradley and Governor Wilson, and they pitched the Democratic leadership in the Congress with me sitting there and the Republicans and said, give us enterprise zones, and then we can attract more private jobs to South Central. And we're still waiting. But you talk about a Congress that refuses to, they all say, oh, yes, this is a good idea. They all go, yes, we were impressed with Mayor Bradley. We were impressed, and nothing happens.
But that bill, complete with its $38 million in housing credits, is now awaiting your signature. Do you, in fact, plan to veto it?
Complete with a whole, yeah, I'm going to veto the tax bill in all likelihood. But it's got a whole bunch of tax increase. It's typical of the Congress. It's why you need a line item veto. They get their own pet projects, stick them in with something that is essential for South Central Los Angeles and a lot of the rest of the cities, and then say, oh, we're going to embarrass the president on this one. We're going to make him go against something he wants. That will change when you get a new Congress.
Couple of final notes. We've got a couple of moments. It's been suggested, while the thought of losing annoys you, you find the thought of losing to Bill Clinton especially grating. True?
I don't think about it. Look, I think of you as an accomplished, one of the leading news people in the world. But I also think of you as an athlete. You're a competitor. And I'm just using you as an example. You do not go out when you're 3 down and 5 to play and think you're going to lose. I never have thought I was going to lose. We have got all these, I get on these talking heads, these guys you guys hire for $200 to come on and give an opinion, whether it's about a war or whether it's about well, there's no way that Bush can do this or that. I can't stand those people. I don't think in terms of losing, and the history will be written, and you will see when the history is accurately written by Barbara Bush or me or anyone that's really close in that I have never thought about losing, and now I'm more convinced than ever I'll win. You're seeing the movement out there.
The thought must have...
I don't.
Even if you take the field totally convinced that you're going to run over everybody, the thought must have occurred to you.
Let me help you this way. Someday I won't be president. And that day doesn't worry me one single bit. I'm going to get big in the grandchild business. I'm going to get big in the golf business. I'm going to tell my handlers who will be gone. They'll be vanished. Don't worry about it. If I want to be out in a boat, whether there's a war on or something else, I know what I'm doing. And forget about it all. But that's going to be 5 years from now, not 1.
All right, let me
close.
And
you don't think about it.
Then let me close it with a quick question. Do you like Bill Clinton?
Yeah. And I think he likes me. And you know, there's kind of an interesting moment going after each other up there on the stage, and Hillary and Bill Clinton came. Oh, we had a pleasant relationship. It's not people outside of politics don't understand how it can be that way. But I don't want to say anything nice about the guy here. I think I'm better for president. And I think I got a better record. And I think people trust me more. So I got to go after him.
Mr. President, again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're back in just a moment, right after this. Thank you, sir.
Great, thanks for coming.
Serve anything less than AE chocolate milk to my guests? Oh, perish the thought.
How do you recognize a truly superior banana?
Just look for this famous portrait.
Chiquita bananas every day at Doll's Foods.
Be a part of the Newscenter 13 team. When you see news happen or capture an event on videotape, call our News Hawk hotline at 282-TV13. It's every parent's worst nightmare.
You guys like puppies?
Would your child talk to a stranger?
Can we go get some in my car?
Sure.
You guys want to walk him?
Sure.
Would your child leave with a stranger?
My car, it's right over here. The blue one.
I'm Kim Kerrigan. If you think your children are safe from strangers, a Newscenter 13 special investigation may just shock you.
Well, he's a nice stranger. I get it.
Watch Strangers Among Us, a Newscenter 13 special report, Thursday at 10.
This is a Newscenter 13 update.
Good morning, I'm Stacia Strand with this live check of local news on a Tuesday morning at 8:26, temperature still in the low 30s. President Bush woke up early this morning. He, of course, arrived in Des Moines about 6 o'clock last night. The president's whirlwind stop in Des Moines will culminate this morning with a welcome rally at the convention center. But earlier this morning, our TV 13 crews were set up hours ago at the State House. This is President Bush walking in to meet with NBC Today Show co-host Bryant Gumbel. You perhaps just saw that interview that they had taped. Gumbel taped an interview about 7 o'clock this morning. It aired moments ago. Now, President Bush says he is absolutely confident that he will be re-elected a week from today. Bush has said he believes Iowa is an important state to win and says he has no doubt he will take the 7 electoral votes up for grabs. Now, this is a look. The president has another stop before he leaves our state. He will be at the convention center at 9 o'clock this morning for a rally and Ask George Bush forum. That'll be at 9, and we will cover that live. Now, the president has already had a very busy day, but it is far from over. Days on the campaign trail certainly long. Before leaving Iowa, the president will address several thousand people at the convention center downtown Des Moines. Newscenter 13's Jim Strickland has been at the center since early this morning. Jim, some anxious people, I am sure. Have you heard if the president is expected to arrive on time this morning?
Well, we just got an update from Luke Roth, who is conducting a political rally right now where the president will be speaking. And he again told us that it would be about 9 o'clock that Mr. Bush would arrive here. This is a Bush quail rally that is going on right now. Paul Lundy, congressional candidate in Iowa's 4th District, is now talking to the crowd. All of the Republican local candidates will be taking advantage of this crowd to give their messages to them before the president gets here. Again, that happens at about 9 o'clock. You heard in Bryant Gumbel's interview with the president that Mr. Bush was complaining about congressional gridlock. Well, we've got our own bit of gridlock here at the convention center. What you can't see on the other side of the camera that is shooting my picture are people standing in the aisles 25 and 30 deep, just trying to crane their necks and get a view of the podium area where the president will be. There just is not enough room in here to handle a very overflow crowd. Of course, if you can't get down here to see it in person, we will have live coverage, Stacia, beginning at 9 o'clock. Back to you now.
That we will. Thanks, Jim. As Jim mentioned, that live coverage begins in just about half an hour from now. Stay tuned to TV 13. We want to head over to Scott Mayo, though, for a quick check on the forecast. That's coming up right after this.
This is the Heartland. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, loaded with natural woodwork. Spacious lot. Since 1926, we've helped families buy their first home, their second home, their only home. Metropolitan Federal, the Heartland's bank for home loans.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Scott Mayo. Still a little cool out there and fog still lingering along the river. 34 degrees with clear skies. Southeast winds at 2 miles an hour, so they're picking up just a little bit. Let's look at the forecast for today. Mostly sunny skies, 64 degrees. Just a few clouds out there. They should be high clouds, just about like yesterday. Picture perfect. Tonight, down to 36 with mostly clear skies.
Think smart. Think one price. Think Mercury Tracer, sedan or wagon, you pay the same low price. For more room than Honda, Civic, Nissan, Sentra, or Geo Prism. More engine, too. Plus an unparalleled list of standard features and a package of options that will save you over $1,600. Or one that has air conditioning and automatic transmission at no charge. So think smart. Think one price. Think Mercury Tracer, sedan or wagon at your Lincoln Mercury dealer today.
7 days until election night.
We're back at 8:30. I'm Katie Couric here in New York. We'll be heading back to Des Moines, Iowa to get some reaction to what the president just talked with Bryant about in our last half hour. In fact, Bryant, are you there?
Yeah, we're okay, Katie. We're just kind of scrambling here because we just got a couple of things off the wires, including the third quarter GNP numbers, which Marlon Fitzwater just told you, 2.7. Your interpretation?
2.7 growth for the third quarter. That's 6 straight quarters of growth. That is about 30-some% higher than most of the estimates, and it shows that this economy is moving. We've had unemployment down for 3 straight months, and if we're in, this is very good news for the American economy to have grown like that. It's 4 times as much as the growth that Japan had in the same period. So it's moving. It's still, I want to see it much more robust, but that is very good news for the American people.
No one has questioned the potential for its jumpstart, but do you see it sustaining itself?
I would certainly hope so, and I would think so, because the fundamentals, as I've mentioned, inflation down, the businesses have had to get much more lean. Our productivity is up in this country. Interest rates are down. This is very good news. If you think I'm happy, you're right. I just heard this.
Do you think it's enough to reverse George Bush's standing?
Hey, listen, I told you my standing has already been reversed. I'm moving. But it's going to be very hard for the naysayers and the pessimists who can only win by convincing people how bad things are to refute the fact that this is very encouraging for America.
In retrospect, I recall, and I can't remember how long ago, but in a discussion with, I think it was David Frost, you expressed to him your optimism that you'd be able to prevail no matter what the economy did.
I still feel that way, but this is good news.
In retrospect, did you overstate your hand?
No, because I told you before this news came out that I thought I was going to win. And I've always felt that way, but this, in spite of it, I mean, look at John Major winning in England when everyone had written him off and the economy was doing terrible, much worse than we've been doing. People look at an overall record. But this is encouraging news.
I'm sorry, I also want to get your response to one other thing that just came across the wires. We started off talking about events in Israel. We're getting an update which doesn't really say anything about other than the tanks going into Lebanon, but Prime Minister Rabin is quoted as saying our intention is to bring about calm as much as is possible. Do you think this is the way of going about that?
Well, I don't know, but you've had these cross-border problems for a long time. And again, I think that he makes a statement like that. That would be every indication that they don't want to extend it beyond where they felt they had been taking fire. So again, I feel it's a most appropriate question, but without getting briefed on exactly what's being done, I probably shouldn't comment, because, you know, when the President of the United States says something in a tense situation, if you're not accurate, you have the tendency could have the tendency to make something worse. That's why I've always used the word prudent in dealing with crisis situation or in dealing with something like this where we're not involved in it. Prudent is a good word for a president.
Okay. Mr. President, again, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. Let's go to Margaret Larson at the news desk. Margaret.
Brian, thank you. As you've been discussing, there is a new development this morning in the Middle East, an escalation along the border between Israel and southern Lebanon. NBC's Hanani Rappaport is on the phone now from Tel Aviv. Hanani, what's the latest from there?
Good morning, Margaret. All we can tell you at this hour, because of embargo and censorship, is very little. All we can say is that Israeli tanks crossed the international border into South Lebanon, chasing Hezbollah guerrillas who killed 5 Israeli soldiers on Sunday.
Let me ask you to speculate a little bit. As you mentioned, this whole situation started on Sunday with the ambush of those soldiers. 12 people killed, 30 wounded in the 3 days since then. How much potential does this situation have for a real escalation of violence?
As analysts here believe, it all in Israel's hand. If Israel will not retaliate too strong this time, the Hezbollah elements will come down and consider this a win, and the violence will stop. However, if Israel will go deep inside South Lebanon, this could, of course, escalate and lead into maybe even a confrontation with the Syrians, which the Israelis try to avoid. Prime Minister Rabin said today that he will continue the peace process and continue the talks with Lebanon and Syria in Washington at the same time that he will continue to pursue the terrorists in South Lebanon.
Hanani, we're looking at some pictures right now from northern Israel where guerrillas fired rockets this morning before dawn, killing a 14-year-old boy and wounding 5 other people. Apparently the latest round of violence before the Israelis sent the tanks into southern Lebanon. You mentioned Prime Minister Rabin and what he is saying about this latest crisis. What do you read his intentions to be after listening to what his remarks were this morning?
There's no doubt that he is determined to continue with the peace process and reach an agreement with Lebanon and with Syria, because he is convinced that only this way will lead to a real peace and real tranquility in this area.
Hanani Rappaport from Tel Aviv, thank you. In other news this morning, President Bush has said that his national security advisor has not yet given him any information about the Israeli move into Lebanon, but referring to the violence, he said, quote, obviously we would prefer peaceful solutions to all these situations. Earlier on today, in a wide-ranging 25-minute interview, the president also blamed Congress for many of this nation's economic problems. He also mentioned that he thinks he will win re-election and answered Bryant Gumbel's questions about challengers Ross Perot and Bill Clinton.
This recent incident is crazy. I agree with it. It's crazy. I mean, an allegation that we would wittingly or in any other way try to break up a man's daughter's wedding, particularly not even in the presidential race at that time. What in the world would be the reason for that? And I mean, I don't understand it. But I do see that Mr. Perot, to his credit, said he accepted the fact that it didn't happen and now go on about the business. Well, but that's after going on a national program and throwing out all kinds of insinuations.
Later today, President Bush will continue on the campaign trail with other stops in Iowa as well as Kentucky and Ohio. Democratic challenger Bill Clinton, meantime, is winding up his final bus tour before Election Day with stops scheduled in Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. 2 new polls show Clinton widening his lead to 11 percentage points over President Bush. The editor-in-chief of the Gallup poll says the percentage of people with favorable views of Perot has stopped climbing in the wake of his charges of GOP dirty tricks. Perot has said he can't prove those charges and now says he's, quote, sick and tired of all the questions about them. In Canada, the noes have it. Constitutional reform is a dead issue. Voters have rejected a package of constitutional reforms that would have given more power to the provincial governments. It also would have granted special status to Canada's ethnic minorities and protected the language and culture of Quebec. Astronaut Michael Baker is celebrating an out-of-this-world birthday today. The pilot of the Columbia Space Shuttle got an early greeting this morning from the Beatles by way of mission control. No sign of any birthday cake, but for the record, Baker is 39 years old. We wish him a happy birthday. Tonight on Dateline NBC, a report on computer hackers and how they get into computer systems. It's easier than you might think. That's Dateline NBC tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Coming up on 8:39 now, back to Katie.
Thanks, Margaret. No birthday cake, but maybe some freeze-dried Twinkies or something.
Just blowing in the wind up there.
That's right. Well, we're going with the flow this morning. That means going now towards Washington, where Willard Scott is now poised with his umbrella.
It's just
a few
prop.
Sprinkles.
Just a prop. The only sprinkles are on my peanut butter. Listen, you know, Twinkies, I ate 12 of them one time. Did you ever do that?
Ew, no.
12 double Twinkies. I think I was 12 years old, and then I rode the roller coaster at Glen Echo, and needless to say, the second part of the story I will ignore.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take a look at this. This is great. This takes place in Irvine, California this weekend for the Heart Association, and this is their fabulous Heart and Soul Classic. 5,000 walkers, runners, and cyclists will be doing their thing, so check it out, all for the Heart Association and for your heart. Good things happen when you take care of your heart. Happy birthday this morning. It's not raining here in Washington. Rejoice, brothers and sisters. It's not raining inside. We want to hear soft money, none of that clink, clink, clink jazz. George Oran, and he is from White Pigeon, Michigan, 100, farmed his whole life, a wonderful sense of humor, never misses church. Handsome man. Happy birthday, sir. And we hallmark salute also Hazel Hutchins of Joliet, Montana. She has just heard a joke. She's And then what? And he said what? Happy birthday, 100 years old today. Good news for California in the west as rain moves into Southern California today, and tomorrow Northern California rain and snow in the Cascades. That's great news. 70 still warm all the way up into the valleys of California, the 80s across Texas and Florida, the 40s in the Northwest and the Great Lakes. And some scattered fog all the way really from Port Arthur back up through New Orleans, back into almost even Atlanta and Savannah, Georgia. Check that out. It'll burn off as the day wears on. Here's what's happening in your world even as we speak.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Scott Mayo. Taking a look at the weather across the Midwest today, not too much is happening. What I'm going to do is put this into motion. These are the past 10 hours, and you're not going to see much change here. Lots of clouds down here to the south around Arkansas. That's where they're receiving rain, but across Iowa, not much happening, and clear skies through the morning hours. That's what we have to look forward to today. Lots of sunshine, 64 degrees. Almost feels like yesterday, and then tonight getting cool once again, 36 degrees, mostly clear skies on your Wednesday, partly cloudy.
That's it. That's all right now. Katie, back to you.
Thanks, Willard, and we will see you tomorrow, correct?
Lord willing and the creek don't rise, I will be here.
All right, see you then. It is 8:41, and we'll be back right after these messages.
I knew Kmart would have a great price on Gold Star microwaves.
Yeah.
My daughter has her own apartment, so she wants to start cooking. You know, popcorn, frozen dinners.
That's cooking.
For her, just setting foot in the kitchen is a big step.
I still cook my son's meals and put them in Rubbermaid serve and savers. Great price.
Why doesn't your son bring your food to my daughter's new microwave?
I like what we're cooking up here.
Kmart really looks different. It sure does.
It's only natural that children look to their parents for answers. So to help you explain why some things that may be fine for adults aren't right for children, Anheuser-Busch offers Family Talk, free advice from professionals to use with your kids while they're still learning to be grown up. And their favorite teacher is you. Let's stop underage drinking before it starts.
10 reasons to call Nutrisystem now. Another great reason to call Nutrisystem now. You get 50% off program services. Nutrisystem meals additional. 50% off. Hurry, offer ends Thursday.
All right, Gladys, from the top.
Though we know you love butter, Fleischmann's found something other. It's over butter. All the smoothness of butter with a rich, creamy flavor. New over butter. It's either move over butter or nothing at all. With sweet, creamy buttermilk, zero cholesterol. Move over butter.
New Move Over Butter from the folks at Fleischmann's.
You look like an angel, walk like an angel, talk like an angel, but I got wise. You're the devil in disguise. Oh, yes, you are. Devil in disguise.
Just when you thought you knew everything about Volvo.
Devil in disguise. Oh, yes, you are. The devil in disguise.
Dad, you're going to be late for work.
And you're not to leave this house without breakfast.
Oh, and who does that sound like?
Give your family all the nutrition of a complete meal with Carnation Instant Breakfast. Because life doesn't stop for breakfast.
Mothers have learned from countless doctors and pharmacists to take care of coughs with Robitussin. And they've taken this advice home. Robitussin, recommended by Dr. Mom. Ask your doctor or pharmacist.
You seem a little more animated. Back now in Des Moines, we are joined by NBC News White House correspondent Jim Miklaszewski. Jim, you were watching the president's interview. You heard a lot of familiar themes sounded, stuff you've been hearing on the campaign trail an awful lot.
I did, and it's one thing that some of his, campaign advisors, handlers are a little bit concerned about still. And that's when you asked him about the economy and this perception that he's out of touch. And in speaking of the economy, he went back into his old saw that, look, things aren't as good as they should be, but they're better than Japan and Germany. Well, the fact of the matter that somebody sitting outside here in Des Moines who may be making less than he used to or even out of a job doesn't care about Germany or Japan or what shape they're in. He's asking, what have you done for me lately, Mr. President, and what are you going to do for me? And in that, I think the president still does not make the connection to the average person on the street. I think he's trying to make that connection a little better in some of these Ask George Bush forums, but sometimes he just falls dead flat.
He still tread lightly around the topic of Ross Perot.
He did. I mean, there's a little bit concern here that the president doesn't want to get involved directly in a spitting match with Ross Perot. Some of his surrogates will, of course, because they have to knock down these charges. But he made it perfectly clear today that he considers the whole thing very strange. And he raised a legitimate question. Why on earth would the Republican Party or the White House want to disrupt Ross Perot's daughter's wedding? It's a head-scratcher.
What about this this brave front that he puts up, smiling, says he's not even thinking about going quietly into retirement? What are you hearing on your front? Does he entertain the notion that, hey, it might not go his way a week from now?
Well, I've talked to some friends who have spoken to him privately, and as a matter of fact, Bryant, they've expressed some concern that the president seems almost philosophical about the possibility of losing. A quiet resolve almost that, look, in fact, I'm told that he told one friend privately that if the people want to change, I mean, what can I do about that? I mean, he intends to still run hard and like he said, he thinks he's going to win, at least publicly. But there are some people a little bit were concerned that he didn't have the fire in the belly, that he really wasn't going after the prize like he used to. I think publicly, that seems to have changed in the past couple of weeks.
Okay, I know you got to get back on the road.
Right.
Mick, thanks.
Great.
We're back in a moment. Still lots more ahead. After a break, this is Today on NBC.
Why is Jim Ross Lightfoot trying to distort Elaine Baxter's record? Lightfoot supported millions in foreign aid while voting to cut millions for Iowa public schools. He voted against requiring corporations to tell us about toxic wastes in our own communities. Elaine Baxter voted to strengthen Iowa schools and help create thousands of new Iowa jobs through export promotion. And Elaine Baxter supports our right to know about toxics. Elaine Baxter, the choice is clear.
There have been some great grills in history, but nothing like the new Village Grills at Village Inn. 4 big, beautiful banquets on bread, all destined to be classics.
Yeah, drop on in, how you been? Drop on in, Village Inn.
We've got what you're hungry for.
The new baby was up all night. Now you gotta make the morning right. Folgers always comes through. It's decaffeinated too.
Mountain-grown Folgers decaffeinated. It gives you something the other leading brand doesn't. Richer aroma to wake you up.
Now you're off to a great start, 'cause Folgers warmed your heart. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Fixing lunch is one of the joys of motherhood.
Peanut butter again?
It's a thankless job.
Ew, egg salad? Isn't this your doggy bag from last night?
You're always pressed for time.
Are you mad at me?
Thank goodness for Lunchables from Oscar Mayer. Their best meats, cheeses, crackers, even dessert. Best of all, kids love them.
Thanks, Mom.
Lunchables from Oscar Mayer. Nothing but the best.
During this hour, Bryant has been talking with the president about the election, which is 1 week from today. The Republican strategy during this final week of the campaign appears to be ignore the polls and full steam ahead. Here's NBC's White House correspondent, John Cochran.
The Bush camp goes into the final week feeling better than it has for a long time. Turnouts are a little larger, and that has helped energize the president, who has found a crowd pleaser in bashing not only Bill Clinton, but the news media.
And also, if you haven't detected, I'm a little sore at the national media. Let me tell you something. Annoy the media, re-elect Bush.
Bush may have little regard for the media, but in the final week, he thinks he has found the best way to use it. Scheduling 3, count 'em, 3 morning network shows, countless local TV interviews, and of course, Larry King again. The Bush campaign also thinks it has a lot more money available for TV ads this week than Clinton does. Most encouraging is the tightening of the polls, and that has made some Bush aides start believing their rosy scenario, the one that gets him 270 electoral votes. To reach the magic number, Bush aides hope to carry some, but not all, of the western states, which usually go Republican, such as Wyoming. Bush's people claim Clinton made a mistake by campaigning in Wyoming because it gave them a chance to send in the GOP's big guns to attack Clinton.
A beautiful day in Georgia. Thank you.
Down south, the Bush people insist they can carry every state, with the probable exceptions of Kentucky, Louisiana, and of course, Arkansas. Bush strategists think they have a better chance in Al Gore's home state, Tennessee. Bush has to win Texas. That is hard, and Ross Perot has made it harder, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But in the rest of Texas, Bush aides say Perot is not as popular as they had feared. In the Midwest, Bush is hoping for some upsets, including high unemployment Michigan. Bush hopes Clinton and Perot will split the votes of the disaffected and disadvantaged. Ohio and New Jersey? Here, too, Bush hopes to keep country club Republicans while Perot undercuts Clinton's support. So, assuming all those upsets, Bush would come up with 265 electoral votes, still 5 votes short. Where does Rosy Scenario find those votes? Outside the continental 48. Add Alaska and a long shot, Hawaii, and Bush is over the top. You may have noticed that scenario relies on no votes from New England. If the scenario proves to be more fact than fantasy, then next year the summer White House will still be in Kennebunkport, even with Maine going for Clinton. For today, John Cochran, NBC News, the White House.
We're back in a moment. This is Today on NBC.
I lay awake thinking, and my mind jumping around, and then I couldn't keep away from it, and I started to think about Brett. I was thinking about Brett, and my mind started to go in sort of smooth waves. I lay in bed and listened to the heavy trams go by, and then I went to sleep. Obsession, Calvin Klein.
Your gift with any $35 Obsession purchase.
At Yonkers.
It's our first new car.
Your Toyota dealer invites you to discover the all-new Corolla.
After the baby, we needed something a little bigger.
More room than ever before with a standard driver's side airbag and available ABS.
We needed something we felt we could depend on.
Plus, Corolla's reputation for value and reliability that Toyota dealers have been delivering for over 25 years.
Afford it? The only hard part was choosing the color.
Rediscover value at your Toyota dealer and discover Corolla again.
For more than 100 years, Bernhard has captured classic styling and made it functional for American homes and lifestyles. And now Bernhard Home Furnishings comes to Des Moines. From the spirit of the 18th century masters to American traditional to Oriental and contemporary, you simply will find nothing quite like this store between Chicago and Denver. And you must come see us soon. Bernhard Home Furnishings, I-235 at the 8th Street exit, West Des Moines.
Barbara packed a lunch pail and hot coffee, and yeah, I punched the time clock. In March of 1971, I was laid off. I voted against the 1990 tax increase. You can't raise taxes high enough to satisfy the appetite of Congress to spend money. We got to change the whole way the game is played if we're going to get the deficit under control. And raising taxes is the last thing you ever want to do, and we can't let it happen.
We're coming up now on 8:54. We slightly reconfigured things this morning to accommodate the president, so we're going to pause now for one final commercial break, and we'll be back with some final thoughts right after this.
These are Jimmy Dean flapsticks. They taste wonderful, the hardest thing I ever tried to explain in my life. Take Jimmy Dean sausage, wrap a nice pancake around it, put a handle on it. You understand that? You do. Try it. Taste that country goodness.
Spent the night tossing in bed.
Said some things I shouldn't have said.
Now the sunlight's breaking through. I put some coffee on for you.
Can't help waking up. Oh, I smell that Folgers brew.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Mountain-grown beans, specially ground, now give Folgers richer aroma to help wake you up and light up your morning.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Bryant, just a reminder, Governor Bill Clinton will be here tomorrow morning for our first hour taking viewer phone calls.
All righty, I'll get to the phones right now, and then I'll jump on the plane and come back.
All right, we'll
Your
see you
local
tomorrow.
news is coming up in just a little bit. We got to get out of here. Katie C., I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
That does it for us. Have a good Tuesday.
It's your turn again, America. Today gives you one final chance to call in and ask Bill Clinton live. Wednesday on America's #1 morning show. Today.
This is a Newscenter 13 update.
Good morning, I'm Stacia Strand with this live news update 5 minutes before 9 o'clock. President Bush woke up bright and early this morning. The president's whirlwind stop in Des Moines will culminate with a welcome rally at the convention center just moments away now. Our TV 13 crew was set up hours ago at the State House. This is the president walking in to meet with NBC Today Show co-host Bryant Gumbel this morning when they taped their interview. Now, President Bush has said that he is absolutely confident he will be reelected a week from today. He told Bryant that this morning on the Today Show, and he is confident he will take Iowa's 7 electoral votes up for grabs. Aides to Bush say this visit to Iowa shows the president is dead serious about winning a state where he has trailed so far in this campaign. Now, before leaving for Iowa, the president will address several thousand people at the convention center in downtown Des Moines. Newscenter 13's Jim Strickland has been at the center all morning for us. Jim, is he expected any moment now?
Yes, Stacia, we have been told that the president's motorcade is on its way here to the convention center. We have a standing room crowd here giving their last "We Want Bush" chants for the arrival of the president, which is expected any time now. I think it was interesting to watch that John Cochran report for the last few moments of the Today Show to point out just how critical Iowa is to the Bush campaign. They expect if they are elected that they will be elected by just 2 electoral votes. We have 7 of them here, and they want them desperately. President Bush expected here in just a couple of moments. Stacia, will throw it back to you now, and we'll come back here in just a few moments for the arrival of the president.
Jim Strickland standing by live at the convention center. As he mentioned, we will be joining President Bush live just as soon as he approaches the stage. Meanwhile, we do want to take a quick check on the forecast with Scott Mayo. You know what tastes better on Grant's Farm bread?
Toast tastes better, jam is nicer. Everything tastes better on Grant's Farm bread.
Spreads taste livelier, pickles are crunchier.
Everything tastes better on Grant's Farm bread.
And why? Because Grant's Farm tastes so good all by itself, and it's cholesterol-free.
Beef is tastier, peppers are snappier. Everything tastes better on Grant's Farm bread. Everything tastes better on Grant's Farm bread.
Taste 'em.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Scott Mayo. This is a live shot of downtown Des Moines right now. It looks fairly pleasant out there. We had a little fog this morning and also some cooler temperatures. We bottomed out last night around 29 degrees, so there was some pretty good frost around the areas. A lot of folks had to scrape off their windshields. That's really about it. At 9 o'clock, we have about 34 degrees, clear skies. Our dew point at 30 degrees, relative humidity up there at 85%, southeast winds fairly light at 2 miles an hour, and a rising barometer, 30.04 inches of mercury. And as we see the area of high pressure located directly above us, we're going to have a spectacular day here, folks. Very similar to yesterday, where we had almost perfect skies, just a few high clouds to speak of. Most of the rain is going to be centered down here around this area of low pressure. Parts of Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana being hit the hardest. We're going to put this into motion and show you what happens throughout the course of the day. Watch this cold front really streak out of parts of Montana into Iowa. All of our atmospheric models here have this cold front passing through Iowa about 6 p.m. this evening. So we will notice a wind shift. Wind should eventually shift to the northwest, but the sunny skies will stay with us today. Most of the precipitation staying well to our north or to our south, depending on where you look, and temperatures very moderate throughout the period, not really seeing much of a change here in our temperatures. The forecast for you today, mostly sunny skies, 64 degrees, very similar to yesterday. Northwesterly winds eventually later today, gusting up to 18 miles an hour. And then tonight, mostly clear skies, 36, a very cool evening. On your Wednesday, looking nice, partly cloudy, and temperature down around 56.
You know, there's a trick to keeping your older appliances going.
Because when the magic's gone, it's gone. And when your appliances have you doing odd jobs around the house, it's time to go to Best Buy. This week, get 0% for 1 year on major appliances. That's 0% for 1 year on washers, dryers, dishwashers, ranges, refrigerators, and freezers. Get it this week at Best Buy and leave the odd jobs to your appliances.
Watch Strangers Among Us, a Newscenter 13 special report Thursday at 10. "20 days until election night.
Behind these numbers is a puzzle. Can you solve it? Chick plus hen, chicken. S plus hoop, soup. Chicken soup. If you can do that, you could win a brand new car as we play Classic Concentration. And here's the host of Concentration, Alex Trebek.
Thanks, Gene. Hi, everyone, and welcome again to our show. Pretty lady on my left won our game yesterday. She returns with $3,000 in prizes. This is Kelly Rojas. Good to have you back. Lady in red. What's your favorite color?
I like all colors.
Yeah? Red looks good on you.
Thank
Black
you.
looked good on you yesterday. If you win today and come back tomorrow or on Monday, we'll see what happens then.
Okay.
Joe Coyle is your opponent once again. He lost the game yesterday, and he wants to make up for that loss.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
From WHO TV 13 Des Moines, this is a Decision 92 update.
Good morning, I'm Stacia Strand. We want to head out to the convention center. President Bush is expected on the stand right now. Jim Strickland joins us live.
Stacia Strand, Governor Branstad has just completed his introductory remarks, and President Bush is making his way to the middle of the crowd. I can see him from this vantage point. He is seated at a stool here, about to address 3,000 supporters and take their questions. Let's see if we can get to the president. Mike, zoom in past me. You hear his voice. And now, ladies and gentlemen, listening and watching live on TV 13, the President of the United States, George Bush.
Let's get right about our business. But first, I certainly want to thank our great governor, Terry Branstad, for being at my side, for that warm welcome. And of course, I needn't tell Iowans how important Chuck Grassley's re-election is. I'll tell you. And for Jim Ross Lightfoot and for Jim Leach, two stalwart friends, if we had more like them in the Congress, you wouldn't hear everybody yelling every place I go, clean house. We need more like them, so send us more like them, and let's get this country moving. I'm delighted to see former Governor Ray here, and I also want to thank Major Dad, Gerald McRaney, who was, you talk about telling it like it is. He does a great job. And Terry mentioned the ag economy, and I do think that when people get down to the wire in the heartland of America, they ought to look at the record. And I am very proud that ethanol is up and that we made a tough call. I took on some of the extremes in the environmental movement. I've got a good record on the environment. We took on some of the extremes and said, look, ethanol is a tremendous fuel of the future. Ethanol sales are up. The waiver we gave the other day is appropriate. It is sound conservation, and it is darn good for the American economy, and we're going to keep on. And similarly, the use of the export program, the export enhancement, the EAP, is important. We extended it to pork, and it was the right thing to do, and I think that'll help. We will continue to fight for opening up our markets. We got the best producers of agricultural goods in the world. We have exports have saved us through tough times. Agricultural exports leading the way. And some of these, my opponent Clinton comes along, Governor Clinton, and says, well, I'm for the NAFTA agreement, but he goes to the auto workers and has a very different tale. And my view is the free trade agreement is good for American jobs, and it's good for American agriculture. And so, I believe we will keep working We will keep working for a successful conclusion of the GATT round, and I was very disturbed the other day to read in the Daily Telegraph, the London paper, and again a report in one of the papers here, that some Clinton minion had gone to try to get the EC to postpone consideration of this important agreement. We cannot put politics ahead of the welfare of this nation, and he has denied it. The governor has denied that, and I think I should give credit for that, but these reports keep persisting, and we will work to get a successful conclusion of the GATT round. And one other thing before I start taking the questions, you know, if you listened to the Clinton-Gore ticket, the only way they can win is to convince America that we're in a deep recession. This morning, the third quarter, 8:30 Eastern, this morning the figures were announced for the third quarter of this growth, the gross domestic product. The third quarter was plus 2.7%. It grew twice as much. It grew twice as much, about twice as much as the quarter before. We have now 6 straight quarters of growth in the United States, and yet the Democrats keep telling us that everything is going to hell, and they're wrong. They are wrong. So people are hurting. Yes, people are hurting, but the thing to do is to put the whole economy in perspective. And you hear them talking, well, Japan's doing this, and we've got a better economy. We're growing now with these figures 4 times as fast as Japan. Far better than Germany, had negative growth. Better than England and France and Canada, and all they can do is think, well, George Bush is to blame. They don't understand the world. It is the United States that's going to lead the world to new prosperity. Mark it down. How are we going to do the... Why don't we start right in? This is the latest thing in American politics, the Phil Donahue approach to life. So we'll take a few questions here, and I'll try to, if you give me a short question, I'll try to shorten the answers up, but I get too enthusiastic. Go ahead.
I'm going to be graduating from Drake University this May, and I'm obviously I'm pretty nervous about finding a job. What are you planning on doing to increase the job market?
Well, the best thing we can do is stimulate growth in the small business sector. And what I have proposed is investment tax allowance, a first-time credit for home buyers. The Democrats say that a capital gains cut is a break for the rich. It is not. It is a stimulus to small business and entrepreneurship. So those are simply 3 incentives. Job retraining for those in the defense industries who are going to have to find different work because of our success in the world. And I believe that the best answer is to stimulate the growth of the private sector. Governor Clinton talks about government investing. Let me tell you something. All the European countries have moved away, Eastern Europe, from this idea that government should invest. They've moved to what we ought to be doing more, getting the private sector to invest. Free up savings, free up investment. And that is the way we will create jobs. It won't be from more taxes and more spending. All right. I've lost control of the questioners. I'll leave that to, it's coming along good.
Mr. President, I'm concerned with the growth of entitlements in our federal budget, and not so much in economic terms, but in human terms. Can you outline your plan for reforming the system so that it builds more self-reliance and less dependence on government?
Well, let me first address it on the economic side. The deficit is clearly too big. The government taxes too much and spends too much. That is a fundamental difference with the other side. The President has no control over about 2/3 of the budget. It doesn't come to me. And that is known as the entitlement programs. What we must do to get the deficit down is to control the growth of the entitlement programs. We got to control it by let it grow in terms of population, let it grow in terms of inflation, and that's it. And then set Social Security aside. Don't touch it. I'm the president that was with Ronald Reagan when it was fixed, and I think we ought to leave Social Security totally alone. Don't mess with it. But on these others, put a cap on the growth. But in terms of your question, which was only partly economic, it is important that we understand that it is private initiative, that it is savings, that it is investment, and that it's not government that creates opportunity. It is the private sector of the economy. And another point that I would emphasize in relation to this question is, we have tried, Barbara's tried, I have tried, support from many Americans to reiterate the importance of what we call the points of light approach, volunteerism. Government can do some things. This is to your question. Government can do a lot of things. Government can show compassion. Government has a responsibility for the national security. But much of helping each other is done in what we call this points of light. One American reaching out to another and helping. You look at the hurricane down in South Florida and over in Louisiana. Government help, we moved in with troops, and we moved in with government aid for this and that, and small business administration and FHA and all of that. But when the chapter is written on that, the people that deserve the credit are those caring Americans who reached out from 49 other states to help the people in South Florida. And that, I think, is what you're talking about. And this idea that everything should be done by government is not the American way, and yet that's what you're hearing in this campaign out of the Clinton-Gore ticket. Now,
Mr. President, when re-elected, what do you intend to do to get tough with the European community to force a GATT agreement for the American farmer?
I like that positive premise. When re-elected, let me tell you something. Let me tell you. And here we clearly have a nice objective cross-section of America, and they seem to agree with me, but nevertheless, no, we are working very hard to get a successful conclusion of GATT. I think most people recognize that the Maastricht vote in France held things up. I am confident we'll get an agreement. We've narrowed the gap on agriculture and on a lot of these other categories. Right now, to be very candid with you, the common agricultural policy in Europe is a detriment to getting it done, although we're making progress. Right now, some would tell you, well, France seems to be the biggest problem area in this. But I am convinced that we can move forward and get a GATT agreement. We have to do it. You know, the best answer to this, helping those in the third world, I told some interviewers yesterday, I think of Iowa, right out in the middle of America, as a state that has an international perspective. You've always been interested in world peace and in these kinds of things, how the world interacts. But I really believe that in terms of this GATT agreement, the best way to help third world countries, those countries that are suffering the most, is to open their markets, open markets around the world, whether it's whatever products we're talking about. And a successful conclusion of the GATT arrangement will do that. We are caught up in a lot of tough European policies. She asked the right question, EC. We are going to have to insist through a lot of technical law, application of the technical provisions of the trade law, that if they don't open up these markets, then we are going to have to, I would use a little softer term than retaliate, but we are going to have to insist on our rights. And I think the world knows that on oil seeds and these other things, and I believe we're going to get the job done. So, this stool is perilous here.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning, sir.
The success of your second term will depend to a large extent on how the newly members of the House will react to your various proposals. And I read in the Wall Street Journal, 10 days ago or so, that the congressional leaders have been meeting to plan strategies in how to squash any reforms that the new members might propose and changing the status quo. Do you have a counter strategy and how to reach
let me
these
tell you
members?
what it is. It's to listen to the people. But here's the problem we've gotten. We got some things done in our first term, good things, caring things. The Americans for Disabilities Act that lifts up those that are disabled and helps them fit into the mainstream, or the Clean Air Act, or more recently even a transportation bill that puts $150 billion into the infrastructure. So we've been able to accomplish quite a few good things. As we got near the end of the first term, this gentleman is right. The leadership, not all the members, but the leadership in the Congress made a determination. We can win if the economy is bad, and we can win if the president doesn't look good by mistake in trying to fix something, do something. And so we've been up against what is a gridlock Congress. Now, what's going to change? You're going to have, because they can't even run a 2-bit post office or a failed little tiny bank this big, you're going to have a lot of new members of Congress. And like me, they're listening to the voters. And I will be reelected and not have any politics on the horizon. No more campaigns, no more debates, thank God. No more whatever else it is. And we'll say, let's get the people's business done. Democrats, Republicans, sit down with me now and let's do what I have told the people I want to do. Health care, make insurance available to all. Whatever it is, education, revolutionize it. Don't go back and patch up, put Band-Aids on something where our kids are getting shortchanged. Revolutionize it. Budget deficit, give me the budget amendment, the line item veto, a checkoff for tax return. And they will have to be listening. When I'm elected, it will be because people are listening to these ideas. And I'll say, okay, sit down. Like Lyndon said, come reason together with a 2x4 in one hand and a very open approach in another. And I believe we can move this country forward in the first 120 days. The politics will be subside for a while. And the best time for a new president is the first days of the second term. Because politics is gone, the voters' words are ringing in the ears of all politically elected people, and the country's beginning to move. You know, I mentioned these growth figures, but interest rates are down. Who wants to go back to the way they were when you had a Democratic president in the White House at 21.5% interest rates and 15% inflation and grain embargoes, and this Congress, if the status quo prevails, will roll over Clinton like a stone steamroller, and we can't have that. So we're talking about the new ideas that will stimulate the growth in the economy, do more in the private sector, and I really am optimistic about moving the country forward with the new members of Congress. Clean house, and it's been done by the voters already.
Mr. President, I was curious. I've been listening to Clinton's economic proposals and trying to make it add up in my own mind. But this idea that you can raise $250 billion of taxes just taxing this top 2%, how does he do this math? Have you and your people had a chance to look into that?
We don't have anybody dumb enough to figure it out. The math, here's what they're saying. He is saying he wants to raise $150 billion in new taxes, and then this gentleman is right, because there's a lot of other proposals where you'd have to get the money to pay for them. And he says, I will tax the top 2%. The top 2% means you go down to $64,000 to start with. Then to pay for the $220 billion in spending, and that doesn't consider how much his health care plan and these other things would cost, you get down where you're hitting everybody at $36,000. And then to do all the spending for all the programs, you nurses, you cab drivers, you guys that are assisting in the field, watch your wallet, because he is not going after just the rich guys. He's doing it the way the Democrats have always done when they control both ends, going right after your pocketbook. And so the math does not add up. And it is tax and spend, tax and spend. And they kept saying it is not tax and spend, and it is. And when he talks about, he uses the word investment, and I'll repeat this. He uses the word the government investing. The government does not create wealth. It's the private sector that does. And so free that up and keep the government constrained. Now, who's next?
Yeah, Herb. Mr. President, when you're elected, the environment will continue to have high priority in this nation. Do you have special plans you'd like to tell us about your plans for the environment?
Well, one thing I'd like to say at the very beginning, one, it's good to see you again, but secondly, one of the great Iowans, respected well beyond the borders of Iowa for his knowledge of agriculture and his promoting of great values. But let me simply say this. On the environment, we have a good, sound record. We've done well in forestry. We've done well in assisting in cleaning up the beaches and in the ocean. We've done extraordinarily well in wilderness, setting aside more acres. We've done far better than any previous administration in enforcement of EPA. But what I've been unwilling to do is go to the extreme. And what we have to do in this country is to say we've got to find, and we're striving to do that every day, the balance between growth and sound environmental practice. So I think the record is a good one. We will continue to be good stewards of the land, but I am not going to go to the extreme that says to a farmer, if it rains and you got a little puddle there, a tiny one, that means you can't use your land. We've gone too far under regulation and too far under interpretation on some of these statutes. And so I think of agricultural, we got a good conservation set-aside program. I think of farmers as conserving. They got their families coming along. They don't want to ruin, rape, pillage, and plunder on their own land. It's ridiculous to start with that assumption. And I'll tell you something, Governor Gore, if you read the book on Mr. Gore's proposals, I'll tell you it would screech this country to a halt. We cannot go to the extreme. He's out there talking about the protection of this feathery little owl. Yes, I love little owls. I think they're wonderful, but we got to also protect the 30,000 families that are trying to work for a living. And the extreme groups will not vote for me. Sound environmentalists will vote for me. Yes, ma'am.
President Bush, as a student myself, I was wondering if you could describe certain points of your education plan for the next 4 years that would help the U.S. rank higher in the world in education.
Good question, and education is fun. Healthcare and education. Education. We have a program called America, I don't want to get too programmatic, called America 2000. We have 1,700 communities across this country who are literally sitting down. They're bypassing the teachers' union, and they're working with the teachers. And they're saying, let's reinvent the schools. And in some urban area, the school will have one confirmation. In another, in a rural area, it might have an entirely different one. We spend more on per capita on education than every country, I believe, except Switzerland, and the results aren't good enough. So when I became president, we worked with the governors, including Governor Branstad, and set 6 national education goals. Then this program, America 2000, is designed to meet the goals. One of the key points is, I believe that we ought to have parental choice for schools, public, private, or religious. It worked. It worked for the GI Bill. It worked for the GI Bill. The money goes to the families, and the public system of education was strengthened under the GI Bill. So that's one of the provisions. And then we've got a lot of programs for adult retraining in the schools, which had come under the heading of education. We have more than doubled the money for Head Start, which I still feel is a very important program to keep up with one of our education goals. Every kid starts school ready to learn. And so the program is really good, and the nice thing about it is you only have to depend on the old thinkers on the Democratic side in Congress for this much, and the rest of it is being done by the communities, community leaders, teachers, and parents. And that's where the action has to be. We've gotten away from all of that. Go here, and then we'll come over there.
Morning, Mr. President. Most people have been hearing a lot about the domestic issues, which are very important, but we're not getting anything from the other side on the international side of events. If most people have been watching their papers and reading and TV and reading the newspapers, they'd see that there's instability again in the Soviet Union. We're not getting anything from the other side of the media on what to do about the instability in the world. And without stability in the world, there will be no good trade, and there'll be no growth. I'd like to know what your plan is, because there's no plan on the other side for stability in this world that we need for growth.
Okay. You're right. I never see it on the programs. Democrats don't want to talk about foreign policy. It's almost like there's no threat anywhere in the world. I noticed your shot at the media. Please be careful. I'm an expert on that. But the best-selling bumper sticker is "Annoy the Media, Re-elect Bush." But I want to. Here it is. By coincidence, there it is. But I'm going to I'll divert for 1 minute and I'll come back to your question. The problem is, there is so much understanding of this that some people are taking it out on those who they should not take it out on, like the photographers with us today, these guys that struggle around carrying these boom mics and the cameras. So put that down as good guys, and leave the traveling press alone. But I hope you share my view about all these talking heads that come on the national television and tell us how bad everything is and that we don't have a chance to win. They don't understand it. And why do you not talk about foreign policy? Because they know that is a strength, and they know that we are the leader of the world, and we are not, as Governor Clinton says, a nation in decline. He puts us south of Clinton and Gore. They got about as much foreign policy experience as Milley put together. Now let me tell you something. The world is still dangerous. We have reduced defense spending, and we've been able to reduce it because with bipartisan support, we stayed strong. We didn't listen to the freeze movement. We stayed strong, and I salute Ronald Reagan. Peace through strength. It worked. It worked. But there are still wolves. The Soviet bear may be gone, but there are wolves out there. I have reduced defense spending by many billions of dollars, and now I see the Democrats coming in, and to pay for all their, quote, investment, unquote, they want to cut the guts out of the defense. We cannot do that. Who knows where the next crisis will come? And the other, I'll say this. I believe that it is exports that have sustained us in the roughest of economic times. I believe it is exports that will lead the world to new heights of prosperity, and I believe that foreign policy is tremendously important in implementing a strong export program. So it's not just defense, it is also international economics, and we got a good record. And my argument with Governor Clinton on the war is this. Nobody likes to make a tough decision where you commit someone else's son or daughter to war. No one likes to do it. And I do believe that having been in combat at least has made me sensitive to all of the ramifications of a decision like that. I made a tough decision. It was the right decision. Your sons and your daughters responded. We stood up against aggression, and as a result, and it would never have happened without that. You see ancient enemies talking to each other in the Middle East. You see Russia going down democracy's path. You look south of our border and you see some trouble spots, but you also see a persistent wave of democracy and freedom there. You see elections in Africa, the world, and you see the Eastern Europeans and the Baltics free. We've had dramatic progress. And the best thing is, the kids here in this wonderful band go to bed at night without the same fear of nuclear war that their predecessors had. And so I believe foreign policy is important. I believe national security policy is important. And I believe that it is an interconnected world. The economies are interconnected, and that it is the United States, with the programs I've outlined, that is going to lead us and the world into new levels of prosperity. We're ready. Inflation's down, interest down, business is more lean now. Our productivity in this country is up, And all of this will work towards enhancing not only world peace, but world economic progress.
You come over and ask it over here.
Mr. President, thank you for making America proud during Desert Storm. I'm here today as a small voice representing small business. I have a small business in the Des Moines area here, and in an effort to provide to my employees a solid work environment and good benefits, I spend each year about $200,000 in taxes, $25,000 a year for insurance, and substantially a lot of money complying with various government regulations. Now, I'm here as a proponent for the Bush-Quayle administration. I'm particularly a big fan of Mrs. Bush.
So am I.
My message to you comes today in the form of an appeal rather than a quit. Given that the success of the American economy depends on the success of American small business, we'd really like to have the administration's help in controlling the skyrocketing costs of doing business.
Okay, Rick.
When next Tuesday rolls around, you'll be needing our help, and I, for one, intend to support you. After next Tuesday, we'll be needing your help.
All right, you should have been getting it by now. We put a freeze on regulations. He's absolutely right. There's too much red tape, and I'm not saying there's not more to do. There's plenty more to do. I want to see a freeze on a cap on some of these outrageous lawsuits that are running the cost of business to small business in particular right out of the roof. And Governor Clinton refuses to stand up against these trial lawyers who literally are driving the cost of health care and business right out through the roof. You don't need more mandates. I am for family leave, but I don't think the government needs to mandate it. Give tax credits to the smallest business of the small and help them do it. So I think we've got to guard against too many mandates telling a small business person, man or woman, how they're going to run their lives. And I think that gets back to this gentleman's question, because really freeing up the private sector is the way to offer opportunity to these kids that are asking about where they get a job, but it also is the way we ought to go. We are not going to reverse the trend and go like the failed European policies where government invests. Government doesn't know how to invest. Now, she was going to get the next question. Nervous?
Yeah.
You don't look nervous. Go ahead.
Well, when in all these debates I watch, Clinton says that he has rankings in Arkansas that are 1, 4, 4, and 1. What are those rankings that he has?
Hey, good question. That's what we call that, in the World Series, every once in a while you see the seams on it when it comes over the plate, the slow ball, you know what I mean? And, but look, Governor Clinton said in the debate, I want to do for this country what I've done for Arkansas. That is a terrible threat. We cannot let that happen to this country. And look, I live near Arkansas, and they are wonderful people. But regrettably, they are at the very bottom on environment. They're on the bottom on job creation. He talks about they led the nation on job creation. That was the year he was out of the state 85% of the time. The rest of the time, they are 30% below the national averages. The teachers are either 49th or 50th in terms of teacher pay. 20% of the, I got all these statistics coming at you. 20% of the criminals serve 20% of their time. Under federal law, it's 85%. Less spent on corrections than in all but one state. And it is statistic after statistic. And yes, Arkansas starts as a poor state. But in some categories, you ought to see, after 10 years as being governor, some progress that one can point to, instead of that thing that we led in new jobs or wages this last year. As I say, he was out of the state 85% of the time. So the record is not good, and I'm saying we got problems in this country. I believe we've got the answers to solve them, but I think it's fair, since your senior senator and Governor Clinton and a handful of other guys, Tasongas, and several of these other guys were going around saying what was bad about my record. I think it is fair, as the American people get ready to vote, to take a look at the record in Arkansas, and it's a sorry record, and we cannot let him do that to the United States of America. Thank you very much. Yeah, I do.
Good morning, Mr. President. Governor Clinton has proposed a 7% tax on businesses to pay for his national health care system. I was wondering if you could explain just what that tax in itself, among with the other ones that the other gentleman was talking about, would do to businesses in this country.
Well, he says now that he didn't want to do that. He's had 3 health plans. Every time one gets knocked down, he comes up with another one. And this gets to the fundamental question of waffling. And to coin a phrase, we cannot let the White House be turned into the Waffle House. We simply can't do that. But the one you're talking about is, the one he's talking about is an insurance system called pay or play. And that if these small business people do not want to go along with the plan, they've got to pay. And if they pay, the estimates are it will cost 7% payroll tax on every business. Now, businesses at this juncture or at any juncture don't need a 7% payroll tax. Our plan is better. What it does is provide insurance to the poorest of the poor through vouchers, to those next overtaxed and overworked lower middle income people, they get a tax credit. We pool the insurance, thus making a small business person can buy at lower rates and get lower rates provided for his or her business people. We make the health care transportable, so if you move from job to job, and I think the averages are quite high in the numbers of people that change employment, those health benefits go with you. We go after malpractice suits that are driving the cost of doctors right through the roof. We use much more efficient billing, and we get it done without slapping a tax on the small business people or any business. And I believe that's the way we need to go for health care. Yes, sir.
Greetings, Mr. President. First, some positive news. I went to college back in the late 70s, and when I attended and started as a freshman, and when I came out as a senior, when my younger brother over here attended as a freshman, tuition doubled. That was the years of the high inflation. When your administration and Reagan's administration was in there, I've had a chance to live the American dream, and things have been very, very positive. I have a great job, great family, super company to work for, and things are good out there. People that are hurting, I think, is going through a purging process. So positive news, I think, from here. And I got a question for you on administration, if I could. There's been very little talk about administration besides just the president and the vice president, and I'm really concerned about if a new person came in, who would they bring in? There's been talk of Mario Cuomo in the Supreme Court. You know, who knows, maybe our own Tom Harkin would be the Department of Defense or something like that. I think you have some of the most sharpest people out there with Dick Cheney and Jim Baker, Margaret Tutwiler, and I can't name them all here right now, but can you please address that? Because I know there's thousands of jobs there.
I do think it's important. I can understand they're not wanting to name who they're going to have, but the gentleman raises a very, very important question. Who are the people that are going to come in? What is their philosophy? And from what I've seen, it looks to me, and maybe this is unfair, like a return to the Jimmy Carter days. And I don't think we need that. When that misery index was through the roof, you guys had a grain embargo on you, and these interest rates were at 21%. But let me put it this way. In our administration, I have been very, very well served by the people you mentioned and many, many more. But to revitalize a new administration, it is traditional and proper that there be a lot of new people in the cabinet. And there will be in our administration. And I think that's good, because I think you can bring in fresh new blood, and I think people start in to implement the program. So I have said there's going to be a lot of change, and it is. And then they say, well, you say this, are you trying to blame somebody for the economy? I've never believed that you can shift blame to somebody. You're the captain of the ship as President of the United States. If things are going well, maybe you get credit, but if things are going badly, the buck does stop on that Oval Office. And one of the problems I've got, this is off your question a little bit, but we should and will bring in people. We're right-sizing government. I have challenged the Congress to reduce their staffs by a third. We can do the White House staff by a third. We'll have to respond to far fewer of these ridiculous queries from from a very partisan Congress, and we'll be able to do that. We're going to put a cap on the federal pay till we get this economy really moving. The only trouble is the president's pay gets cut a little bit, but never mind. That's the way it works, and that's the way it should work. And so I really believe new approach is required. On the Clinton-Gore ticket, I'm afraid we would see a lot of the same old names that had failed foreign policy and this kind of government control, more government intervention, more government in the domestic side. And I must insist that when the whole world is moving away from government investing, this is no time for the United States to bring in a bunch of people that think they can figure it out better than the farmers out in Iowa.
Last question. Mr. President, I think we have time for just one more question.
Time flies when you're having fun here.
Mr. President, I'm from Moscow, from Russia, and I have a question for you. Are you planning visiting Moscow again to continue working with Mr. Yeltsin? I repeat, you don't understand?
No, I'm hearing. I'm here.
Are you planning visiting Moscow?
Oh, excuse me. I thought we're just in the middle of it. Planning a visit. Well, first place, I support President Yeltsin. I support the move towards democracy. They're having some problems in Russia right now, as we know, but they're problems in a sense of democracy. Well, Yeltsin fighting with the Congress. Have you heard that one before? And it's, so I have no specific plans, but let me tell you something that might sound a little self-serving to you. I was very pleased when Boris Yeltsin has said publicly that George Bush was the first world leader to recognize what we were doing. You remember, I'll never forget the sight of Yeltsin standing on top of that tank. And I didn't waffle. Governor Clinton said, well, let's wait and see who's going to come out or how it's going to work out. When he was governor and asked to comment on the democratic change in Moscow. Yeltsin is publicly on record saying President Bush supported us. He never wavered. And that support and that consistency was one of the things that guaranteed that our move to democracy would succeed. That is world leadership, if you'll excuse it, and that is important. And it gets back to this gentleman's question. Those things are important. Well, look, the governor tells me we're out of here, so let me just end this way. You know, first place, I wish Barbara Bush were here because I really believe she has been an outstanding First Lady and she would love to see this marvelous crowd. Secondly, I wouldn't be standing here as President of the United States if it weren't for Iowa. And I'm thinking back to the 70s, early the 80s and I would not be here. And we have tried, I say we, because in a sense, it is whoever's living in the White House. We have tried to uphold the trust that has been placed in us by the American people. When I make a mistake, I've said, look, I made a mistake. Isn't that what families do? Isn't that what your kids do? Or maybe some of you all do? And go on then and try to lead the country. When Governor Clinton said, it's not the character of the president, but the character of the presidency, I violently disagree with that because the two are interlocked. Not just in this country, but people from all around the world look to the White House and the occupant to the White House for the character, their character, and the character of that shapes the character of the presidency. I have tried very hard to uphold the trust. I have not tried to be on all sides of all issues. And so in the final days, as we wind down to this election, I am confident, not overconfident, but I am very confident of re-election because I think what will happen is people will go into the booth, they'll look at all the issues, they'll listen, they'll have in the back of their minds the debates, they'll know the problems we have, and they'll also begin to see some of the good things that are happening in our country. But in the final analysis, they're going to say who has the honor, the integrity, that sense of service that merits my trust, who does have the character. And on that basis, I ask for your support, and I ask for your vote, and may God bless our great country. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
at the Des Moines Convention Center. He spoke just about his allotted time, 40 minutes. Took the opportunity to take a few shots at the Clinton-Gore ticket. Told the crowd here that Governor Bill Clinton and Senator Al Gore have about as much foreign policy experience as the Bush family dog Millie. He once again talked about some familiar themes that we have heard throughout his campaign, that Clinton would turn the White House into a Waffle House. And again, because no one really asked him about the character issue, he used his last few remarks there to talk about it, saying that he believes when people go into the voting booth, character will be top on their mind when they pull the voting lever. Again, he is now making his way through this crowd, a very loud and raucous crowd. Again, it was planned this way because it was ticketed Republicans only. They had some protesters outside, but as far as inside this hall, just a jubilant group of supporters. Stacia?
Okay, Jim Strickland reporting live from the Convention Center. We're going to leave you and the rest of our TV 13 crew out at the Convention Center for them to follow President Bush as that about wraps up his stay in Iowa. He will be taking off for the Des Moines airport shortly after greeting the many guests that he has had out there. We wanted to get some reaction. We have in studios, in our TV 13 studios this morning, Iowa Attorney General Bonnie Campbell joining us here today, speaking to us more as a spokesperson for the Clinton-Gore campaign as you chaired the State Democratic Party during the last presidential cycle. You sat alongside the rest of us listening to President Bush answer questions for the last 40 minutes. Your reaction, please, to what he had to say this morning.
First, I'd like to comment on the logistics of this meeting here. Initially, the president was going to have a rally, a public rally. Then Governor Clinton came here on Saturday and drew just an enormous crowd. At least probably 13,000 people.
At the state fairgrounds on Saturday.
At which point, the president then decided, gee, maybe I better have a ticket-only event where only Republican supporters could get in. So what you saw here at the Civic Center, while I thought his questioning was pretty issue-oriented and good, it was totally staged. He wasn't very likely to get tough kinds of questions.
President Bush is swinging across the state right now, and of course 7 days before the election. Your point you just brought up has been talked about, that Governor Clinton made a stop with some 11,000 people out at the state fairgrounds. President Bush, a more personal visit. You had to have tickets to get into this. As we're looking at the Bush rally as he is getting set to leave after this rally this morning. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think the question that if I were an ordinary Iowan I would ask is, was he afraid that he wouldn't draw a crowd the size of Governor Clinton's? Or was he afraid to meet the people in a more public setting? I thought this came off very well. I don't want to be totally critical. Okay. But people do need to know that it was pretty staged. It was bought and paid for by the Republican Party, and so it wasn't a real test of his mettle, so to speak.
At this point, Bonnie, many would say Iowa would be a toss-up. Our 7 electoral votes are up for grabs right now. This shows by Clinton visiting Saturday, President Bush coming in last night, staying through this morning, shows that both candidates are taking Iowa very seriously and believe they can win it. President Bush told our own Scott Pope that he is confident he will take Iowa. What do you have to say?
I am equally confident that he won't. Interestingly, this is his first visit to Iowa during this campaign season. Governor Clinton has been here 3 times, and maybe more even in a smaller group setting. I think Iowa is important in anybody's scenario, largely because we're part of that great Midwest which they perceive as being up for grabs. I believe that Iowa will go for Governor Clinton. I'm delighted to have the president here, however. I think it's always a wonderful honor when we have the president and other dignitaries be here. But I want the people to be aware of the fact that the president hasn't been here before. His policies haven't been kind to farmers or people who live in smaller communities. And this meeting that we just saw, while it was very positive, was thoroughly staged. And if they keep that in mind as they filter through these next few days, I'll be happy.
Okay, well, it was a question and answer forum for about 40 minutes after his 10-minute address to the people. We will, of course, be getting more reaction to the Bush rally from the convention center. We thank you for coming in this morning and sharing your thoughts with us. That does about conclude our live coverage. We want to let you know where Mr. Bush is headed from here. After he leaves the convention center, the president will be departing from the Des Moines airport. His scheduled departure is for 10:30 this morning. The president does have more campaign stops to make today. He will be heading to Kentucky, and from there, Ohio. He has scheduled stops. Again, that concludes the Bush rally that you are watching live here on TV 13. Tune in tonight, 5, 6, and 10. We will have extensive coverage of President Bush's visit to our state and reaction as well. We'll see you then.
The new baby was up all night. Now you gotta make the morning right. Folgers always comes through. It's decaffeinated too.
Mountain-grown Folgers decaffeinated. It gives you something the other leading brand doesn't. Richer aroma to wake you up.
Now you're off to a great start, 'cause Folgers warmed your heart. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
It's savings time at Walgreens Photo Center. Right now, get a second set of regular or supersize prints for just a nickel a print. And choose any of these Polaroid items, just $29.99 each. Polaroid's popular one-step and cool cam instant cameras, or a 4-pack of Polaroid film, a $44.99 value, only $29.99. And order your holiday photo greetings. Walgreens offers 6 beautiful designs, colored envelopes, and a free marker pen. Save on all your photo needs at Walgreens.
Attention mattress shoppers, there's a tremendous mattress sale now in progress at Don's Wholesale Furniture. Don has all the best therapeutic mattress sets on sale. The Medicoil Pillow Top, the Cairo models, and the Hotel Motel quality sets. You can purchase by the set or by the piece during this sale. Twin, full, queen, and king sizes are available. Don has queen size mattresses starting at only $49 and full size mattresses starting at only $59. Come in today and receive a free bed frame with all sets purchased. Easy finance terms and same-day delivery service are available. Don's Wholesale Furniture, located at 4401 Northeast 14th Street in Des Moines.
That cough sounds awful. Come home.
When you have to doctor a bad cough, reach for Robitussin Maximum Strength Cough. It lasts up to 8 hours, and there's nothing stronger without a prescription. Robitussin Maximum Strength Cough, from the brand more doctors and pharmacists recommend.
I'm glad to see you.
This'll help.
Robitussin Maximum Strength Cough, a new cough and cold formula. Big relief for your worst coughs.
We now join our regularly scheduled program already in progress.
A happy group of carolers being led by their sweet bird of song.
Stop the music! I have had it with this group. I've heard better harmony from an alley cat under a truck.
These divas are so temperamental, huh? Oh, look there. Our lovely working mother. No doubt.
Night Court is a Warner Brothers television production and is distributed by Warner Brothers Domestic Television Distribution.
It's savings time at Walgreens Photo Center. Right now, get a second set of regular or supersize prints for just a nickel a print. And choose any of these Polaroid items, just $29.99 each. Polaroid's popular one-step and cool cam instant cameras, or a 4-pack of Polaroid film, a $44.99 value, only $29.99. And order your holiday photo greetings. Walgreens offers 6 beautiful designs, colored envelopes, and a free marker pen. Save on all your photo needs at Walgreens.
Coming up on the next Van and Connie show, we're going to talk about vegetables.
Also, the world champions of video games. Is this that little Mario guy that hops around?
Something like that.
This 24-hour news update is brought to you by Bonanza Family Restaurants.
Good morning, I'm Stacia Strand with this live news update at 10 o'clock. President Bush just finished addressing a crowd of more than 3,000 at the Des Moines Convention Center. He spoke for about 10 minutes and took questions from the audience for about 45 minutes. The Bush rally concludes the president's visit to Iowa. After shaking hands and signing autographs at the center, Mr. Bush will leave for the airport. Scheduled departure is 10:30. He has a busy day of campaigning yet to do in Kentucky and Ohio. More next hour.
don't you natives have quieter ceremonies like Flag Day? Lily, you awake? Why does Angela haunt me like this? Why can't I get you out of my mind?
Minutes. He came here to, without a doubt, preach to the choir. It was, for the most part, a Republican gathering that he addressed this morning at the convention center. President Bush has come back to a state that has flatly rejected him several times in the past. Back in 1988, of course, he finished third in the Iowa caucus, and Mike Dukakis carried our state in 1988. But he told me the other day on Air Force One that he came back to Iowa because he thinks he can win this state. From here, Air Force One departs for Fort Campbell, Kentucky, another big day of campaigning for the president. From Fort Campbell, he will head off to the state of Ohio. Several campaign stops there. President Bush plans a non-stop 11th hour, witching hour, if you will, campaign swing around the country in the remaining 7 days of the election. He says he is encouraged by the polls that show the race is tightening in some areas, and kind of a change of attitude from the president, who in the past several months has pretty much discounted the polls, saying that they don't show really anything. But now he's using them to his advantage, saying that his campaign is gaining momentum. Secretary of State and the President's campaign chief, Jim Baker, was along on this trip, as well as Marlin Fitzwater. Press Secretary Fitzwater had run in with an anti-Bush person last night at dinner. The person at a restaurant caused a little bit of a commotion. He was arrested. Marlin Fitzwater, though, not willing to comment on that situation today. Again, the first stop in Des Moines for President Bush since October of 1990. And perhaps his last visit to Iowa as President of the United States. A lot depends, of course, on what happens in the next 7 days. Not quite the gathering here this morning for the President's departure that we saw last night. Mainly members of the 132nd Tactical Fighter Wing and the 124th Fighter Squadron from the Air National Guard. But a good day for flying. The President off to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It's been an interesting 16 and a half hours. Reporting from the airport, Scott Pope, News Center 13. Stacia.
All right, Scott, thanks a lot. A very upbeat President Bush taking off aboard Air Force One now, as Scott mentioned, on his way to Kentucky and Ohio, where he has further campaign stops to make today. We will have more reaction and more details, complete coverage as we continue it here at TV 13 today at noon, as well as tonight live at 5, News Center 13 at 6 and 10. We'll be back at noon.
We now join our regularly scheduled program already in progress.
I don't understand what it is with you. You wouldn't know real happiness if it was staring you right in the face. My God, you're after me for months. You followed me all the way here. Now you got me where you want me, and I am willing to play by your rules, and you push me away. What the hell is wrong with you?
This isn't what I want.
The hell it isn't. You wanted risky. You wanted no holds barred. You want me.
Is it so hard for you to understand? It's all I've ever wanted. Someone who loves me. From the depths of his soul.
I'm sorry. I think you want something that I can't offer.